Alright, I think I'm live. Now, I'm testing something out here because on my other channel, my main channel, I never get any views or comments when I go live. And I'm wondering, because I've noticed this, I beg your pardon, a lot of people tell me, just making sure I'm centered, a lot of people tell me that they didn't get notified when I go live on my other channel, or when I post on my other channel, and, you know, it makes me wonder, is that actually happening? Like, is my other channel not telling people when I'm going live? Now, I hardly get any views on this channel, too, but to be fair, I have less than 100 subscribers on this channel. On my other channel, I have like 20-something thousand subscribers, like 28,000, something ridiculously high. And nobody watches my live streams. They must not be getting notified. That's all I can think. But on this channel, I usually get a couple people tuned in. And considering there's only 50-something people that are even, maybe 80-something people that are subscribed to this channel, that says something. You know what it tells me? That maybe those 80 people are actually being notified. So, for whatever reason, YouTube doesn't like promoting my other channel. They don't like it when I do things on that channel. They're trying to silence me. So they haven't done that to me yet on this channel, and I'm gonna take advantage of that. I need a drink. I'm sorry. I'll be right back. I don't know. I should have thought about that before I sat down. But I figure, you know, I'll give it a second for people to tune in, because I know people don't always get notified right away, and if they do, maybe they're busy, maybe it takes them a second to tune in. So if anybody is here right now, go ahead and leave a comment, let me know you're here. Hello. I got a notification for this one just now. The other one I double checked, and I'm subscribed with notifications on, so I agree with this. It's okay, all the important people are here. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you know, sometimes you'll tune in, Zach will tune in, Cheryl. Any subscriber that's like known usually tunes in when I go live on this channel. So I'm glad you got notified. And you may be the only one here, but at least that doesn't mean that people aren't here because they didn't get notified. At least I don't feel like YouTube is in any way trying to sabotage this channel like they seem to be doing with my other channel. So I'm centered. I got a tissue because I needed one. Probably should have done this off camera, but my nose just gets wet sometimes. You know, oh, I don't have glasses on. I've been wearing my glasses more lately, so I have a habit of, like, adjusting them, pulling them back on my face. It's a little weird not having them on. But I haven't worn them today, so I don't even know why I did that. Just, like, I don't know, like, knuckle crack. It's just like a reflex. Sorry. This is gonna turn into a mukbang, or however the fuck you pronounce it. LOL, it's probably just a setting or threshold of some kind. Don't think the company is specifically trying to silence you. Yeah. I think that it's a possibility, but I have all my settings checked on. I really don't have any, I don't have anything that would stop that from happening. And there is a history of YouTube, like, silencing certain comments, certain channels. It happens, and I've seen people talk about it. So I don't know what I did. I'm sure that there are certain things, you know, have you ever noticed people who do YouTube, they try to stray from saying certain words? There's certain things that, like, trigger, like they flag you, you know? And if you say those words, you'll be sort of taken out of the algorithm. And they'll stop promoting you, they'll stop putting your videos in suggestions, they'll stop, you know, or maybe just that specific video, but if it's a consistent problem, they might do it to your whole channel. It happens to people, but it hasn't happened to this channel yet, thank God. But, you know, I'm just going to focus on building this channel, because I think this is actually where I have a chance at building a channel. But yeah, I definitely... People have gotten notified about videos from my other channel before. So it happens, but only sometimes. Sure, there are certain community guidelines and additional considerations, metrics if the channel is monetized. My channel's not even monetized. That's what's so frustrating about it. They rejected me when I tried to apply for monetization, they wouldn't let me. And this channel isn't eligible because I don't have enough subscribers yet. You need to have a minimum amount of 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 views per something. I forgot what it is, but I got the numbers right at least. Thought I was gonna sneeze. Anyway, not trying to talk about that all day. Let's talk about what's in the title, the Conservative Strawman. So this is actually kind of similar to what I discussed on my last video on my other channel. I called it Birthday Stream because I did it on my birthday. And this is a more fleshed out version of what I was trying to say there. And I also don't have a time restraint. I had to keep that one short because I had to be somewhere, but this one doesn't have that. I think it used to be view hours in a rolling year, but I haven't looked at it in years. Could be changed. Yeah, maybe. So there's also a different threshold for shorts because shorts tend to get more views, so they have a higher standard if you're doing shorts. So anyway, I'm gonna do some shorts. I got an idea for a short when I woke up this morning. And it was about how people say bring back manly men, and people say, you know, bring back bullying and stuff. First of all, as if these things have gone anywhere. Just look in the mirror. The person saying it is a bully. The person saying it is probably their definition of a manly man. So just look in the mirror. I promise you these things have not gone anywhere. But that is not a good thing, you know, because the whole bring back manly men thing, there's a certain lack of empathy. And what I would want to say in the short is there is nothing manly about forgetting to treat other people with kindness. I think that's cowardly. And I think it's pathetic and embarrassing that you can look at someone who you perceive as weak, who you perceive as, you know, fragile and not strong or masculine or manly enough, based on things you've assumed about them, and you've decided that they should be a certain way and they aren't that way. To look at someone who's weak, and instead of feeling protective and wanting to be kind to them, treat them with empathy and dignity, focus on what you have in common instead of what separates you. You just think about the things you don't like about them, and you post it on social media and try to make them feel bad. That is bullying. So the whole bring back bullying thing, it hasn't gone anywhere. You're doing it right now. And you probably already are the version of a man that you want this person to be. So just be happy with yourself. And you can be isolated and live in an echo chamber with crazy fucking people like you who just spout negativity. So that would be the main thing I would want to say, is just there's nothing manly about being unkind. And I'd condense it a little because I went a little bit of a tangent there, but it seemed like a good idea for a short, and I just haven't filmed a short in a while. I feel like I'm awkward at doing that. I'm better with the live streams because, you know, I can take them less seriously. But one thing that I learned is that I want to try to take things a little more seriously. I really don't like that every time I do something, I do it a little bit half-heartedly, you know, and not on purpose. It's not like I don't really care about doing live streams. It's just that part of me feels like it isn't worth it. It doesn't help that I only have one person watching right now, and it's somebody that I told that I was going to be going live before I went live. So even if he didn't get notified, he had a warning from me. But like, so it doesn't help that I don't really have an audience. But either way, there's just this sense of like not fully committing to taking it seriously and doing it in a professional way. And I do that a lot in different areas of my life where I'm sort of like not jumping in all the way. I put a leg in, but I don't fully dive into whatever it is. So, I want to stop doing that. I want to start taking things a little bit more seriously and treating them like they're worth doing and like they matter, and sort of like if it's worth doing right, sort of thing. And I think even just going in with that intention could make a world of difference. So right now my current live stream schedule is just going live whenever I have something to talk about, whenever I feel like going live. And I did miss doing live streams. I took a couple of weeks off from it, but um it hasn't even been a full week since my last live stream. So never half-ass two things, whole ass one thing. Yep, that's a perfect way to put it. It's not good, and it comes from a place of fear, that if you put all your eggs in one basket, that it's gonna be the wrong basket or something. You're gonna regret it. You're afraid that if you fully invest in it, you're gonna be like, shit, now what? But it doesn't hurt to just take things seriously. Ron Swanson. Oh my God, is he from Parks and Recreation? Didn't I saw him in a compilation where he had this hilarious quote where he was walking in a convenience store and his cart was full of junk, excuse me, and a worker stopped him and said, "Oh, you look like you're building something fun there." Or I don't know, he made some kind of friendly comment, and Ron Swanson turned and looked him dead in the eye and said, "I know more than you," and just kept going. That was one of the funniest things. Like, imagine just saying that to someone who's trying to be friendly and just doing their job. "I know more than you." And then the guy was just like, "Okay." He didn't know how to respond to that. Because how do you respond to that? Like, that person just ended the whole conversation. There's no response. So I often have interactions with people where I'm learning and having a lot of like philosophical thoughts where I'm like, oh yeah, this is interesting. This is an interesting interaction I'm having, and here's what I'm learning. Here's what I take away from it. And I also do that when I'm watching videos, and I've been really invested in politics lately, like extra. As the election is approaching, I think it's on all of our minds. It's hard to pretend that the impending decision between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris isn't important and isn't, going to have a huge ripple effect, not just on the US, but on the rest of the world. Because the US is definitely a significant country. It has a lot of influence on other countries. And Donald Trump in charge, he has interactions with other world leaders. And he's trying to say that if Kamala Harris wins, we're going to have World War III. And there are people saying that we're going to have World War III if he wins. And, I mean, just think about that. Like, it's definitely a big deal. So it's been on my mind a lot lately. And I have been watching a lot of stuff about stuff. And there's this one lady who I cannot stand for the life of me. I forgot her full name, but it's Kristen something, and she is a pro-life advocate. Whole profile dedicated to abortion stuff, and I can't stand her. Her energy, her whole attitude, her whole demeanor, everything about her just gives me major ick. I feel like that every time I go to a plant nursery. I don't even remember what that was in response to. There's a delay with the comments. But anyway, she said something that I was really, I wanted to comment on, and I think it was related to, you know, facts. So, this is the title of the video, The Conservative Strawman. What I am talking about, the strawman fallacy, is, most people probably know about this. If you don't, it's a chance to learn. It's when you create an argument that's easy to take down. So it's sort of like putting words in someone else's mouth. Someone says, I think I'm going to take off work on this day. And then they say, so you don't care about the company? What's wrong with you? They twist it. They make it sound like you're saying something that you're not saying. Because if that was what you were saying, you would sound insane. I have never seen a group of people do this more than conservatives. They are constantly strawmanning any arguments opposed to their narrative because it's the only way that they can survive. They're in the wrong, like 100%. And their whole goal is distracting you from that. So they're constantly virtue signaling, constantly trying to play the victim, constantly trying to act like these wonderful, virtuous, incredible people who are fighting against all of this terrible, evil injustice. And the way that they do that is by creating something that isn't real so that they can beat it. And when you put words in people's mouths, you're really not helping. Now, what they do to take that to an extreme, they often find people who they don't have to put words in their mouths. They find stupid people who say stupid shit, and then they post a video of themselves talking to that person, and they're like, this is what these people all think like. And sometimes it's a smart person who is just backed into a corner because, the way that they frame the argument, that person doesn't have a choice but to sound stupid when responding. So this is a scary situation, Like, imagine if you were just walking down the street at, like, a college campus, and this bitch came out of nowhere and cornered you and started fucking scratching her skin and throwing her skin around and saying, I'm scratching cells around. Is that the same as a human life? Because I can't get, somebody could gather my cells from my dead skin and build a human out of it with voodoo magic. But, that's not the same as, like, getting pregnant. She's like, and if a man's jerking off and coming everywhere, it's not the same as doing it inside a woman because, we wouldn't call that murdering because life begins at conception. She's just, I'm not even kidding. Like, this was an actual video on her account, you know? And this woman somehow takes herself seriously. And she's talking to this guy, and just a random person walking by. And she's like, so is that the same as a life? How do you even respond to that? Like, what is there to say when someone says something like that? They've put you in an awkward position. So the only thing that you can do, which unfortunately this person didn't, the only thing that you can do is call them out on their straw manning. This is one thing that I've learned in arguments, in conflict of any kind, with any type of person, any situation. You have to resort to holding up a mirror. You can't engage because it's sort of like they're throwing out bait. And when you engage in any way, when you start having the argument, you're taking the bait. You're doing what they expect you to do. So you have to be smart. Instead of taking the bait and having the argument that they want you to have, hold up a mirror. Show them what they're doing. Spell it out for them in plain English and move on with your day. Say, this is exactly what you're doing, period. I'm not interested. And there's no now you've turned it around on them. They can't argue because you just spelled out exactly what they're doing, and it's embarrassing. They should be embarrassed. It's pathetic. But you have to be smart in order to do that. And if you don't think you can handle it, don't engage. If you can't confidently understand what this person is doing and hold up a mirror and spell it out for them, don't even engage because you're just going to make yourself look stupid and you're going to give them material to work with. And you don't deserve that. That's not fair to you. It's going to embarrass you. Maybe you don't care. Maybe maybe you are stupid and you don't even have a level of embarrassment or self-consciousness at all. Maybe you just walk around, you don't care if people point and laugh at you because you have, like, no awareness. I would hope that that's not the case. Not that there's, a reason to be nervous. Like, I admire confidence, but there's a level, like you'd have to acknowledge there's some people who, even it's not confidence that they're ignoring other people's opinions of them. It's more just that they're like, like there's a lack of thought going on in their head. And if that's the case, then I guess it really doesn't matter what happens to you because that's on you. But if you care and you don't want to be made a fool of, do not engage with these people. There's nothing to be gained from it. So, what I wanted to point out with this lady, she had a video where she was talking about the Kamala Harris debate, and she mentioned three things, I think. Number one was the idea that pregnant women are not being given treatment, and they're being left to die. That is true. She said that it's been disproven multiple times. It hasn't, because it happens, and I know because you can name specific people that it's happened to. You can talk to women and find out that these things are happening. You don't have to, like, even trust a news source, but there are a lot of independent news sources that are going to report on that. And it makes sense, too, because with the laws that are in place, it's not that the doctor is, I think that's what she said, that there's no laws in place that are saying that. But what you don't understand is the laws that you have put in place are a little bit blurred. The lines are blurred between helping a woman having a miscarriage and giving a woman an abortion. The doctor is afraid that he's going to be accused of giving an abortion, so he has to save his own ass because he doesn't want to go to jail. And if he helps this woman and it looks like he could have given her an abortion and there's no way to prove that he didn't, that puts him in an uncomfortable position. So then it messes up her body to the point where she can't even get pregnant anymore. And I don't know why she would want to after something so traumatic like that. But still, like, and then sometimes she doesn't even survive. Like, she can bleed out, her baby dies, and the baby dies anyway. Like, it's insane. This kind of stuff is what happens when you don't give people access to the healthcare that they need because you've branded it as some form of, like, immoral act. And she also was talking about pregnancy up until, or abortion up until the moment of birth. That is just not a thing that people try to do. There's nothing to be gained from having an abortion at the 9th month, and there's nowhere that's legal. Like, if it's not legal to kill a child. It's just not. If somebody gives birth and then you kill the baby afterwards, that's murder. Like, it just is. And she's trying to say that it isn't. And she said, call abortion clinics and ask them for an abortion that's late term. They'll give it to you. Okay, well, first of all, have you actually tried to report these places? Have you actually checked if that's allowed, or anything to further research that? And have you also checked if that's something people are doing a lot? I mean, maybe the person offering it to you is just not even aware of what they're saying. There could be a million different explanations for that. But my point is, if I went down this rabbit hole and I started trying to make these points to her, I would be made to sound stupid, and I know that. I know that about it, so that's okay. She would have everything I'm saying, she would have a counter. She would be like, well, no, because this, and this. She's ready. She's well-versed. She knows what she's doing. So she's prepared to make me look stupid. So what you have to do is you have to realize it's not about the arguments she's making. It's not about the specific things that she's pointing out. I forgot what the first thing was. I named 2 and 3. I forgot whatever the first thing she pointed out in the debate was that she said was a lie. I think it had something to do with a law that Kamala was trying to pass. I think, yeah, she was like, she says she just wants to restore Roe, but that's not it. She wants to add something else, you know what I mean? So she was trying to break down lies that Kamala said in her only debate with Donald Trump. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, you might watch that video and think, wow, that's really bad. And not even do any of your own research, which is another messed up thing. Like, you would just be taking her word for it, first of all. But second of all, you would hear that and you'd think, oh my God, that's horrible. I don't know how anyone could take her seriously. It's not fair. Excuse me. It's not fair that no one was fact-checking her. It was just 3 against 1. It was the 2 debate people and Kamala all against Trump. And poor helpless little baby Donald Trump, he didn't have a fighting chance because everybody was against him. And, the narrative is that poor little Donald Trump is at the mercy of the all-powerful left that controls everything. And what's funny about that is that they also say God is on Trump's side, but apparently the left is more powerful than God. Like, they say that the left is artificially causing hurricanes. So what they're effectively saying is that we control the weather. We're more powerful than God because we control who becomes the president, even if it's against God's will. Like, these people cannot possibly be hearing themselves when they talk. There's no way. It's absolute insanity, but this is the problem. So she sits there and she makes these arguments and points out 3 things that she disagrees with about the debate, that she thinks Kamala lied or whatever. And you might hear this and you'd think, oh my God, Kamala lied. That's horrible. Maybe it is 3 against 1. Maybe it is poor Donald Trump. Maybe I should vote for him. Maybe there's an agenda. There seems to be dishonesty here. Is there an agenda to kill babies? Oh my God. And you forget the core issue. What you have to ask yourself, you have to separate from the arguments being made, from the statements being made, the words that are being said, and ask yourself, who is saying this shit? And what are their opinions on other things? Do some mental math. So take this woman, for example. On a surface level, if you only listen to what she talks about the most, and you only listen to the narrative that she wants, she is this righteous, virtuous, amazing woman trying to save the lives of innocent, helpless children who can't fight for themselves. So she's championing them, and she's standing up, and she's saying, I'll save you if no one else will. Because poor little innocent babies are dying, and we have to save them. And there's a whole group of people that are trying to kill them and advocate for that, and they're trying to pretend that they're the virtuous ones, but they're trying to kill people, and that can't be right. So I'm the good one. And if you saw that on a surface level, you'd think, wow, she's a good person. She's really doing a good thing. But that is the straw man. She has created something that she can stand in opposition to, and she has dressed that thing up as something that anyone in their right mind would stand in opposition to. Of course, you would stand against people who are trying to murder babies, but that's not what's happening. And you don't really have to have a logical argument with someone about whether or not killing babies is okay. Because clearly, anyone who says, I love killing babies, and they're being serious, they're not just saying it to piss you off, because let's be honest, there are a lot of people on the left who like to just, rile up conservatives and say, I love killing babies, just to annoy them, because they know that it bothers them, and it is kind of funny, honestly. But, if they're being serious, that's a problem, and it does not represent a political movement. It's just a person who's nuts, and maybe there are a bunch of them. Again, does not represent a political movement either way. It doesn't matter how many of them there are. They're all nuts. No one should want to kill babies. That's not a normal thing to want to do. And, when you take people who are doing that and you use them as an example, that is the definition of creating a straw man argument. And it is a fallacy, It's complete bullshit. There was a hair on it. That's why I blew on it. I don't think you need to blow on soda. I'm not crazy. Anyway, is anybody here? Haven't gotten a comment in a while. But yeah, so I'll continue while I wait for a comment if anybody is here. And if not, you can always watch the replay. So it's not like I'm talking to myself. People will, I know at least Cheryl will watch this. So yeah, I realized this, and I said, okay, so we take this woman who's presenting herself as standing in opposition to killing babies. Sounds like a good person, right? But who is she in other areas of her life? What else does she support and stand for? Clearly, if you do research on this person, scroll even down in her own account, she stands in opposition to transgender people, which, again, are human beings, living, breathing human beings with hearts. And instead of communicating to them with empathy and recognizing them as human beings, she wants to create a narrative that they are dangerous, creepy, figment of the left's imagination. They're not real. The left just made up the concept of being transgender, which is what Trump said. You know, and his supporters. And by the way, she is supporting Trump, like 100%. She's been very outspoken about that. You know, she is also probably in opposition to gay marriage and anything that wouldn't be Christian, because of course she's a Christian. She's a Catholic, and a lot of Catholics, or a lot of Christians, don't consider Catholics to be Christians. They're like, Catholics aren't real Christians. That's a whole thing. I don't want to get into it. Catholics disagree. That's what's funny. Catholics consider themselves Christians. Christians do not consider Catholics Christians. So it's a little bit of a funny dynamic, but you know, it's all bullshit in my opinion. I don't think that there's any reason to tie your view on the world to a specific religion. Somebody said that's not true, dude. Who are you? Say something more than that. Don't just, because I don't even know what I just said a lot of shit at once, so I don't know what you're responding to. But my point is, when you start looking at this woman and who she is in her other areas in her life, you realize that, in general, she stands in opposition to treating people with empathy and kindness. She has an agenda based on religion, and she's trying to control the way that the world is. And then you start to realize there's a lot of corruption behind that. And you know, there's very clearly an agenda, and that can ground you in knowing that you should be standing in opposition to her. So when you're having an argument with someone about a topic and it gets blurry, it becomes hard to tell what's true and what isn't, and you're trying to figure out whether or not facts are facts and what's, like, you know, you can't even tell what's going on anymore. And it becomes unclear. You should base your life on the religion that you follow. That's nearly the entire point of it. I don't know if I said that. I might have said something like that, but again, you know, I feel like you're putting words in my mouth, which is kind of the whole title of the video. That's like, you should base your life on the religion you follow. What I was trying to say, because I'll get back to what I was saying in a minute. Let me just respond to this. What I was trying to say is, excuse me, there is no reason to tie the way that you see the world to a specific religion. You can have an outlook on the world. You can have beliefs. You can think things work a certain way, but you can remain open-minded instead of saying, I see some things in this religion that align with the way I see the world. Therefore, everything in this religion must be true, and nothing outside this religion can be true. Now you've limited yourself. You've thrown yourself into a box, and that limits your perspective. And you become very adamant about clinging on to that. And what I think is very unfortunate is a lot of people are so confident in their religions that they'll start telling you, they're like, I know this religion is true because this happened a long time ago and blah, blah, blah. And they'll give you some explanation. They'll be like, there was no way that they could have known this, or how was this? There's proof this is the oldest, whatever. They'll have something. And the problem is, mainstream religions are incompatible with one another. They can't both be true. There are differences that cannot align. It's one or the other. You cannot say I'm Muslim and Jewish and Christian all at the same time. Not No, that is not possible. But the problem is there are Muslims, Christians, and Jews who are all equally confident that what they're following is absolute truth. And they will all tell you with complete and utter confidence that it's true. They'll be like, this happened, and I have this reason to believe this, and that doesn't seem realistic. And then they'll shit talk each other, and then they just spend going in a circle, just fighting endlessly. Doesn't get anywhere. The base values of morality and such are very similar with these religions, but theological aspects are different. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Well, yeah, I mean, to be fair, values and morality, they're innate. I don't believe that you need a religion to know the difference between right and wrong. I don't think people need religion to tell them that killing somebody is wrong. You know, if you break into somebody's house and you just shoot them in the head, I don't need context to know that you're the attacker in that situation. I don't care what that person did to you. You don't just break into somebody's house and shoot them. You know, you don't just jump onto somebody and start violently beating the shit out of them until they're dead. Like, you know, maybe context would help me sympathize with you if you were being bullied relentlessly by that person, if that person made you afraid for your life and it was self-defense. But for the most part, if you're the one initiating it, you know, it's wrong. And it's, like I said, to varying degrees. Like, with context, I might sympathize and understand a little more, but it still doesn't make it okay. And I don't need religion to tell me that. I only need logic, but it helps to also have, you know, a gut feeling, intuition, just saying, this is wrong, and I'm sure if I thought about it, I could figure out why, and I could explain it logically, but in my gut, I know this isn't right. And that's a good place to start. And then try to figure out why you feel that way. Why do I feel like this is wrong? And you'll always be able to explain it. But when you start with someone telling you that this is wrong, you might forget that, you know, that maybe doesn't align with what your gut says. There are a lot of things that people try to tell you. You know, there's a lot of narratives in the world, you know, that it becomes hard to tell the difference between right and wrong. Like you might have when you were a little kid and you didn't have anything else in your head, because then you start being exposed to ideas of other people's opinions in society, and you just feel it. It's not even it's not like one day somebody sits you down and says, this is the difference between right and wrong. Now with religion, maybe that does literally happen, but it doesn't have to. You feel it. You see it in media. You feel it when you go to school and you hear any exposure really to the outside world. You're going to feel all of the opinions of other people about what's right and wrong, and sometimes you adopt that as your own. And you don't even realize that it isn't yours. Religion reinforces this standard of morality. Some people do not have a moral compass similar to you and I, and maybe someone sees that evil can be objectively good. What are you advocating for? You know, I disagree. Everybody has a moral compass. Everybody has a conscience. Everybody knows the difference between right and wrong. And there are a lot of people who want you to believe otherwise. There are a lot of people who want to have an excuse and say, I don't know. I couldn't help it. I didn't know. I thought that was right and wrong. I didn't know the difference. I thought that I was doing the right thing. No, they didn't. They knew they weren't doing the right thing. Don't buy into it. It's bullshit. People need to learn to take responsibility for the things that they do. And there's so many people who just need to make excuses. They can't do it. They can't take responsibility. They'll find every excuse under the sun to either justify it or play innocent and say they didn't know, they couldn't help it. It's all bullshit. They did know, they could help it, they chose wrong. And I have yet to see any evidence to contradict that. There are situations where someone is genuinely mentally ill, but I think it's pretty easy to tell, you know, that person is, you know, if they truly are mentally ill to the point where they're dangerous, what difference does it make if they knew the difference between right and wrong or not. It's very clear that they are dangerous. It's very clear that, you know, they're not going to always choose right. They've made it clear that they don't care to take control of themselves and actively, consciously choose right over wrong. So it's clear that they're not a safe person to be around because you don't know what you're going to get from them, you know? It doesn't matter if they're in control of themselves or not, or if they know the difference or not, because it's very clear that they're not going to be choosing it. So just keep them away until it's clear that they actually understand how to choose right over wrong. But I think everyone has the ability to. I don't think anybody is born incapable of distinguishing between right and wrong. I don't think there is a mental illness that prevents you from doing that. I think mental illness of that kind is caused by letting go of that control, caused by overindulging negative thoughts, and sort of like you have a negative thought about yourself, about a situation, about a person, and you give that thought a lot of attention, and you claim it as your own instead of dismissing it as like, where the hell did that come from? That's not me. What do I gain from thinking something negative about something? You adopt it as your own, and then it takes over, and you sort of let go of the wheel at that point. You kind of become like a passenger of your own life, and then you spiral into mental illness, and you aren't always behind the wheel. um, and then you may want to use that as an excuse and say you didn't know the difference between right and wrong, but you do, and you just aren't strong enough. You are not trying hard enough to choose it, and only fear can do that to you, and it's unfortunate, but it doesn't mean that you aren't responsible. It doesn't mean that you should get sympathy and people should be like, oh, poor him, that was completely out of his control, he was violent and hurt people, and poor him somehow. Like, no, not poor him. It's unfortunate, and it is unfortunate that that's what he's choosing, but he's still got a role in it. So, you know, we need to be better at holding each other accountable and holding ourselves accountable, and being realistic about what we can expect from other people too, because I think sometimes we expect too much from other people. I was just having an argument with a friend about a situation that he was in, where I thought someone was taking advantage of him, and I was like, there was a bit of a power dynamic where this other person was not quite as interested as my friend was. And the problem with that was that it put my friend in an awkward position where he was sort of being strung along, and the other person wasn't willing to actually pick a side, kind of like have your cake and eat it too. You have to commit to someone. If you like someone, if you want them around, especially if you know that they like you in that way, you have to pick a side. Either set a boundary and say, if this is how it's going to be, we can't be friends, or we can't be this close, or whatever. Like, you know, set some form of a boundary, or just commit to them and be like, okay, I want to be with you. Let's just do this. But this person did neither of those things. This person strung my friend along and was constantly, you know, sort of betraying my friend's trust, and like, just canceling on plans and shit, just like random shit. Um, and what bothers me about that is that, I feel like, my friend was blaming himself and saying, I messed up too. It wasn't just him. I messed up too. We were, because I would yell at him sometimes, and I'm thinking, listen, maybe sometimes you behaved in a way that wasn't ideal, but who put you in that position in the first place? Who gave you something to be angry about in the first place? Who was dropping their end, and not carrying their weight in that situation? It wasn't you. So sometimes, people go too hard in taking accountability, and they forget that it's okay to acknowledge when you're in an unfair situation. A lot of abuse victims, too, like this happens so often with like women in abusive relationships with men. Unfortunately, that's usually the dynamic, where, during the relationship, women are saying shit like, oh, he only hits me when I'm stupid, or, it just you know what I mean? Like, oh, I deserved that. I pissed him off, and I knew better. And then when they get out of it, they're like, I should have known better. It was so obvious that he was abusive, and I kept making excuses for him, and I'm so stupid. Why didn't I do that? Or, I should have been smarter. I should take accountability too. When he punched me, I punched back, and two wrongs don't make a right, and all of this stuff where you're like beating yourself up. This guy has left your life. You've figured out he's abusive. You've cut him off. You've moved past it, and you're still thinking about him. And you're still thinking, "Oh, I wish I had figured it out sooner. I wish I knew he was abusive sooner. I wish that I did this differently, or I guess I can't, he's not all bad because I messed up too, and even though he hit me, I hit him back, and I shouldn't have done that, and I'm not perfect either." Like, this may sound on a surface level like that person's taking accountability, but all they're doing is just letting the abuser still have a hold on them even after they're gone. And it happens so often, it's not even funny. It's like a pattern, it's like clockwork. During the relationship, all they're doing is making excuses for their partner's abusive behavior. And after the relationship, they're making excuses for the partner still. And they're saying, I wish I figured it out sooner, or I wish I didn't react this way to the abuse. You were being abused. Who gives a shit how you reacted to it? Can we focus more on the fact that you were being abused than the fact that you might have had a bad reaction to it? You should not have had to have a reaction in the first place. That should not have been a position you were put in to begin with. And you probably don't do that with normal people who treat you right. You probably are a really good person to be around, and you probably do take accountability when you mess up. In your friendships with people who are actually kind to you and who treat you right, you probably you probably are great to those people. So why are you so worried? Why are you acting like you need to reflect on this and think about what you did wrong? It doesn't matter what you did wrong. You were being wronged in this whole dynamic, this whole situation. So you're probably great to your other friends. You're probably a good person. And if you're worried about the past, because you're like, okay, well, maybe I'll be good in the future, but do I owe that person an apology? Should I feel bad for that person? Hell no. Absolutely not. Did that person ever apologize to you? Did that person ever come to you without expecting to get anything in return and just say, I am sorry. You don't owe me anything. I just wanted to let you know. What I did was wrong. There's no excuse. And that's that. And then move on. No. When abusive people apologize, they're trying to get something out of you. They want back in your life. They want money. They want attention. They want time. They want another go at you. Abusive people never apologize for no reason like that. There's always an agenda, you know? So you don't owe that person shit. Get them out of your head. Stop reminiscing. Stop reflecting. Stop reeling in your mind about this. I hate seeing people go through this because there's nothing you can do. They have to come to it on their own. You can't tell them there. Sort of like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force them to drink. You cannot convince that person that the water isn't poison. If they don't want to drink it, you just have to let go. Say, hey, I brought you here. If you want to walk all the way back, that's on you. I did my part. And then move on. But it's still hard, especially when you care about the person. But I've gone on a tangent now. Let me catch up on comments. Religion reinforces the standard of morality. Some people, oh yeah, I already read that. All right, man, nice talking to you, but the DoorDash driver has indeed arrived. See ya, bro. Who are you? Well, I guess you're not here anymore, but I don't know who you are. Sounds like this dude has many female friends. I wasn't talking about a specific guy later on. The specific situation that I was talking about with my friend was none of that involved a girl. My friend is a guy. But then I started talking about just in general things that happen to a lot of women. I don't think my friend was in like an abusive relationship, because it wasn't even a relationship. It was like a crush on a friend, and the friend liked my friend, like that there was a mutual attraction and connection, but the other person, who by the way was significantly older than my friend, not really that big of a deal, but it's still it's a factor. Um, he just was not willing to commit to my friend, and that's his prerogative. He doesn't have to. But if you're going to choose that, at least own that that's what you've chosen. Don't try to like say, "No, I'm not choosing you. I'm going to go date somebody else." But then still keep you around and still give you mixed signals and still, string you along. That is messed up. And it's just shitty. But that's between them. I didn't see a lot of that myself. I've just been hearing about it, because I do know both of them separately, and separately I I like both of them, which is what's weird. Like, I don't have any problem with either of them on their own, but the dynamic that was displayed to me, um, you know, it just is a mess. And I don't care. Like, I don't have to have a personal opinion on that person as much as I do have to care about what my friend is saying to me and what my friend is feeling and going through. I don't know if what I just said makes sense, but it's sort of like how, in cancel culture, a lot of people will accuse someone of a horrible crime, and they aren't just asking that you, excuse me, that you support them and you give them sympathy, and you trust them, that you listen to them. They're asking specifically that you share their contempt toward the person they're trying to cancel. And that doesn't feel to me like a real victim coming forward. That feels more like someone with an agenda trying to use what happened to them as a way to take someone down. And most of the time that people come forward with abuse stories, it doesn't feel like that. You can tell. They're coming forward, and you can tell that it was hard for them. You can tell that there's a lot of emotion behind it, and they're really upset by it. And they're talking about it, and I'm sure they are hoping that this person gets taken down. I'm sure there's a lot of hatred toward this person. But the real reason they're coming forward is because they want to share what happened to them. And that is important to do, especially when it's, a powerful person who you might need to protect other people from. But there are some situations where it has a totally different energy, and it feels like it's more about attacking that person and taking them down than it is about doing anything that's actually good. And I have always been good at telling the difference, but a lot of people don't, because unfortunately, a lot of people get kind of a mob mentality, and they grab their torches and pitchforks and they start hunting these people down and lecturing them, but there's no winning. When you hunt these people down, what are you hoping to accomplish? Are you expecting to maybe, um, like, teach them a lesson? Do you think they're actually going to learn anything? Are you expecting to kill them or send them to prison? Because I really can't imagine a different option. Either you're trying to teach them something, or you think that they're unteachable, therefore, why even have them around? They're just a punching bag at that point. They're just something that you can take your anger out on because they don't matter, you know? So it's one or the other. And often they try to act like it's both. They try to teach them, but also treat them like a punching bag and like they don't matter. And it's very confusing to be on the receiving end of shit like that. So I don't do that. I treat everybody based on their interactions with me. When someone screws me over, I tell them what's up. Um, and I was just having an argument with somebody who I had to tell somebody off earlier today because this random person messaged me on Facebook back in April, and we talked very briefly. And we didn't talk at all until today. And he just randomly messages me and goes, "What are you doing?" So I'm thinking, who the hell is this guy? So I just said, I'm watching a video. And he was like, "Ooh, what are you watching?" And I sent it to him, and it was a video called "Love Your Anger, It Loves You." And it was a great video. It was about how people have been trained to be people pleasers, and there is science, there is psychology behind the idea that anger is there to protect you. And there's a lot of stigma. We associate anger with violence, with danger, with, angry men throwing things, punching people. Anger is often associated with insanity, crazy. Like a woman, it's usually crazy. A man is usually violent. But anger is not seen in a good light. We don't like anger, but anger doesn't have to be like that. There is such a thing as healthy, productive anger. And I think a lot of changes that have been made in the world were driven by anger. Think about all of the changes that we've made. Think about the fact that we no longer are calling black people the N word regularly in the US and segregating them. Do you really think that there wasn't a shit ton of anger behind the movements that led to that? Do you really think that the people who were being fucked over didn't have a lot of rage underneath it? You are allowed to be angry when someone is fucking you over. You are, and it's okay. You don't have to be a people pleaser. You don't have to be pleasant. You don't have to try to make other people comfortable. When, an example that was used in a video that I watched, when your boss asks you to stay late at work and you are exhausted, you've been there all day, you don't want to stay any longer, and you have a right to be angry. You have a right to say, how dare you? I'm one person. Give me a fucking break. But you can't do that because you're afraid. You're afraid that if you say that, you might lose your job. You're afraid that if you say that, you don't have the right to say that because maybe your boss does have the right to ask that of you and maybe he doesn't, but you don't know yet. You have to think about it and you have to consider all these other things first. So you forget to just listen to your initial gut reaction, which is anger, and that's justified. You know, who cares if your boss has the right to ask that of you? The right decided by whom? By the terms and conditions of your job? Maybe it's technically okay, but there was a time when a lot of really messed up shit was technically okay. There was a time when it was technically okay to, again, own slaves. I like to talk about racism and how recent this shit was because I don't think people realize this wasn't that long ago. Slavery, what was that, like late 1800s, something like that? Segregation and just like actively referring to black people as like Negroes and coloreds, I don't know, the 50s? Your grandparents were alive at this time. I mean, Jesus Christ, like this was not that long ago. Um, so it's wild to me that that people don't realize how recent some of these things were, but it's beside the point. The point is that with with racism, uh, it was normal and it was legal and it was allowed. So it was still not right though. So even though maybe technically your boss has the right to ask that of you, it's still fucked up and you have a right to be angry about it. And if your boss is a normal human being who you should be working for, he'll understand that. And if he isn't, maybe it's time to find a different job anyway. If you're standing up for yourself and doing the right thing, you have to trust that the universe is going to have your back and you're going to find something better. There's always something better when you stand up for yourself and you do the right thing. When you put up with abuse, the message you're sending out to the universe is that you're willing to put up with abuse. So that's what you're going to get more of until you learn to stand up for yourself. There's a vast difference in being okay feeling angry, not feeling guilty for being angry, and allowing yourself to feel it and deciding to behave in any way one wants out of anger. Yeah, exactly. So, I think a lot of people associate anger with losing control and having violent outbursts, and that is not necessary. It's possible to be angry and use it in a productive way. It's possible to be angry and not just start throwing insults at someone. You don't have to be angry and then start saying, fuck you, you're ugly, your kids suck. I hope you get strangled in front of your children. It's possible to be angry and say, why would you do this to me? You know what I mean? Like you can make other people face what they're doing to you without um stooping to their level. and using their same cruel tactics. The whole fight fire with fire thing. Like, you don't have to fight fire with fire. You can fight fire with water. You can put that shit out. Um, and that is going to be a lot more productive because then there's less things burning down. Um, so yeah, just stand up for yourself. That's the bottom line. But I was watching this video and I thought it was interesting, and I sent it to the random guy messaging me on Facebook, and he was like, "Oh, um, well, I'm watching porn," and I was like, "Okay, you know." And I was like, "Were you expecting me to say that too?" When I said I was watching a video, and he's like, "Kinda," and I was like, "Well, I wasn't." So, and then I had to yell at him because I said, "Listen, dude, why are you messaging me?" And he goes, "Because I find you attractive." And I said, "But like, who am I to you? Like, we barely talked when you messaged me back in April. I don't know you. I don't know you. You're a random person talking to me, and it's been months since you even attempted to talk to me. And the first thing you say isn't how am I doing? It's what am I doing? And then I told you, and then you showed zero interest in it. You just showed disappointment that it wasn't what you thought it was going to be. Um, and what the fuck, you know?" And he was like, "I'm sorry, I need to work on my conversational skills." And I was like, I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is that you don't have an interest in me, you know? Because if I have to tell you to be interested in me, if you ask me what I'm doing and I tell you and you're just like, "Oh," you don't ask a question. Even the title itself, Love Your Anger, It Loves You. When I sent him that, not a single comment or question, nothing. Absolutely zero interest in that. Just disappointment that it wasn't what he thought it was going to be. And I was like, okay, if I have to tell you to be interested in me, there's a deeper issue than just you bad at conversational skills. I know plenty of people, and myself included, who are not always the best at conversation. My issue is I talk too much, and I know that about myself. It's fine. When you have empathy, you can overlook people's mistakes and flaws, and you can see the human being trying underneath it. But when you have someone who isn't even trying, they're just making excuses for their shitty behavior so that they can continue it, that's a problem. And this guy was like, "Well, I've been working since I was 16 and I work in customer service, so I'm not good at developing social skills." And I'm like, "Okay, how is that my problem? I don't know you." And you know how old this guy told me he's going to be? 28 in a couple weeks. This is someone who's almost 30 years old and seems to have no interest in developing his conversational skills. And if he was expecting me to help him with that, which I don't even think he was, I think if I had tried, it wouldn't have made a difference anyway. But that is not my goddamn responsibility. He is older than I am. He needs to figure that shit out on his own. And he won't. And that's his problem. But I told him that straight up, and I don't feel bad about it. Like, because people like that, you need to just tell them what's up. You can't be like dancing around it, and you can't feel bad about it either. Just tell someone exactly what the situation is. Accepting our feeling. Wait, did I miss anything? Okay. Accepting our feelings and understanding that there's no changing that we just feel what we feel. Our behavior is based on those things, is what we can control. But I mean, if you had a version of that video with hot, naked people, maybe he would then be interested. Yeah, probably. It's really on you that you didn't source porn versions of psychology vids. Yeah, true. I suppose I should do that from now on. But yeah, just it's just unfortunate because I think he represents a large number of people who just do not know how to interact with other human beings. I've had so many people hit me up and they're like, I don't talk to these people anymore, but I've had a couple people that I indulged too much, and they're like, "Do you want to FaceTime?" And I'm like, okay. And then they just sit there and stare at you. I'm not even kidding. I had this guy, I was trying to watch a show, and I told him that. And he's like, can we FaceTime? And I'm like, well, I'm watching a show. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna watch this show no matter what. And I'm gonna tell him that. So if you want to FaceTime me, that's fine, but you're just gonna be sitting there watching me watch the show because I'm not engaging with you. And he goes, yeah, that's fine. And I'm like, what? So then he called me, and he literally just sat there with me on FaceTime on a different app on his like iPad or phone or whatever, and was like shopping for shit. And I just look at his face and he's just shopping for shit. And I'm paying attention to the show. And I waited like 20 minutes and then I just hung up. And he didn't even notice. He didn't text me back or anything. I was like, what the fuck was that? What was that? And why was he okay with that? Is he that lonely? You know, it was so weird. And the problem with people like that is that they get bored and then they immediately feel entitled to somebody else's time and attention and energy. They don't realize that it's supposed to be a mutual exchange, you know? They think that just because they want someone's attention that they are owed it. But they're not. I don't owe that person my time or attention. They're not bringing anything to the table, and I don't find that interesting. I don't want to just have someone sitting there on FaceTime while I try to watch a show. Um, so, and when we did talk, he did most of the talking, and my God, it was boring as shit, and it was weird too. He was just talking about the people that live in his apartment complex, and how annoyed he is with some of the people that knock on his door, and annoying customers at his job, just random shit. And this is someone that I didn't even know that well. Like this was how he started conversations with me. So there were people that I gave too much attention to, and I've learned since then to have better boundaries. And I didn't realize how important it was because, you know, sometimes I like the idea of someone. I think, hey, maybe this person could be a good friend. And then I'm like, you know what? I think I'm giving them a little too much credit. And I don't need that. I don't need a random person hitting me up on Facebook trying to talk about porn. I don't need a random person trying to FaceTime me and bringing nothing to the table. What the fuck do I get out of that? Nothing. Nothing. It doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter like anything about them that might pique my interest. If they cannot bring to the table the same level of energy, engagement, and interest that I do, they're not worth my time and energy. And more people need to apply that way of thinking to their interactions with other people because we overlook flaws when we think someone might be interesting, you know? We say, sort of like, again, with um, my friend liked this person so much that he was willing to overlook a lot of the reasons to stay away from this person. And I think it was a physical attraction. And it started with that, and then it turned into other things. It turned into emotional. It turned into like connections over things like that. But, you know, it's beside the point. The point is that, you know, when you have those things, you focus so much on them that you're willing to put up with other bullshit. And unfortunately, there are some people that there's no appeal. There's nothing. They have nothing. They're just sort of there in the wrong place at the wrong time. And you are too polite to tell them, I don't have an interest in engaging with you. I don't have anything to gain. You know, I can't, you know what it comes down to? It comes down to this. I can't be friends with everyone. There needs to be a hook. There needs to be something about you, something you did for me. You know, maybe you know, maybe you saved my, you know, my cat. I don't have a cat, but you know what I mean. Like maybe you did something, um, and we're friends because we have some sort of connection over a shared experience. Maybe you know, we have a connection over a mutual passion, not just an interest, but a passion. We can work together. We can do, you know what I mean? Like, but there are some people that just exist. They find you interesting. Maybe they like the way you look. Maybe they like some interests you have. Maybe they think you'd be a fun person to hang out with. But then they walk up and they immediately feel, just because they're interested in you, they immediately feel entitled to your time and attention and energy, and they'll start talking to you in a way, and you can feel it, you know? It's not like they're being polite in any way. The way that they're talking, you can feel that they just expect you to be just as interested in them as they are in you. And I don't feel that in a lot of my friends, you know? A lot of my friends are much more capable of holding their own, you know? They hold their energy, they understand that it's their responsibility to do that. And they don't ever make me feel like they need me, you know? They're not like desperately attracting me. There's no clinginess. They're just there and I'm there and that's okay. And when we interact with one another, it's because we both want to. Um, and that's what a true friendship is. When there's an element of one-sidedness where you're like, I really want to talk to this person, it almost feels like if I were famous and I had hundreds of thousands of people who wanted to be my best friend, how the fuck am I supposed to have 100,000 best friends? At a certain point, you have to say, I can't be friends with everyone. You need to have a hook. You need to have something to bring to the table that interests me. And if there's nothing, I don't need to feel bad about um, not interacting with you. Maybe I'll give you a friendly hi. But even that, sometimes you give them an inch, they take a mile. You say hi just because they said hi. All of a sudden, they're like, so when do you want to meet up? And I'm like, shit, I don't. Like, you know, and then you feel like an ass because then you don't know how to respond to that question. And you shouldn't have responded at all in the first place. Although some people back you into a corner. Some people try to trick you into responding um, with different means. Like they'll hide things about themselves, and then all of a sudden, after you've already engaged, then they reveal shit, and then you're like, oh shit, I've already engaged, um, and now it's gonna look I'm gonna look like an asshole. So, but the thing is, my takeaway from this, the bottom line is, um, these people are the assholes. It's not you. These people are adults who are not behaving like adults. This is extremely immature, stupid bullshit, and you don't have to put up with it. You don't have to feel guilty about not putting up with it. This is not normal behavior. This is not what good, healthy individuals do to each other. So don't feel bad. Don't let people guilt trip you. You know? You don't owe people shit. The old saved my cat best friend origin story. I'm not gonna lie, that is a real thing. Um, you know, I mentioned Ivy Rivera a lot. She made a video called How to Make Friends a couple months ago, and she shared a story of her cat almost got hit by a car or something happened, and this new assistant that she had hired in person or something was like, on his first day, he was on top of it. He called the ambulance. He did something, you know, and a bunch of people were being super nice to her, and she knew right away that she was going to have a good friendship with that guy. So she told that story. I think that's what got in my head, you know, and that's what's funny. Like, you know, because you made a joke out of it, but it was a real thing. So I know that sometimes shit like that happens in real life. You know, you meet someone and there's just like something that just happens, and you're like, wow, this person is amazing. Um, we're gonna have a real friendship, but you can't be friends with everybody. There needs to be something like that. There needs to be a hook. There needs to be an interest, because if it's one-sided and they're okay with that, what's wrong with them? Why are you okay with asking for my time and attention when I'm not showing any interest in giving it to you? Like, I wouldn't want someone's attention if they didn't seem to want to give it to me. If I thought someone was interesting and they could not, they were showing me very clear that they could not give less of a shit that I exist, why would I continue engaging with that person? Why would I keep trying to respond to them? That's crazy. That would be crazy of me. Um, and they would have every right to ignore every message I sent them, because, you know, if they're not interested, that's not, you know, I'm not entitled to their attention. I'm not. I don't care, you know, how famous they are or how many things we have in common or how attractive they are. It doesn't matter. Like, if they are not interested in me, then that's the end of the story. And it doesn't mean anything bad about them. You don't have to be like, they're too good for me. What is it about me that they don't like? You don't have to start spiraling and thinking, what is it about me? They don't like me? They don't have to. They don't have to. It doesn't mean that they hate you. It doesn't mean that they're disgusted by you. You know, and if they are, then maybe they are an asshole. But it doesn't have to mean anything like that. It could just be that there isn't something about you that hooks them. And that's okay. They might already have a bunch of friends. You know, maybe the role that you would have filled, maybe they already have a friend who fills that role. Maybe you know, there's just nothing about you that's really useful in their life. And you can't expect to be useful in everybody's life. You're gonna have to hear that sometimes. It's not that deep, you know? And the person that you have to do that to sometimes, they can react to it the same way. They can have the same acceptance of it. It's not that big of a deal. Perhaps I should get and continually lose a cat to make new friends. That would be really weird. That'd be funny. I mean, you do have a dog, but yeah. I have a dog too, so I guess I should have said dog, but I already had cat in my head from the other video about friendship. I've gone on many a tangent in this video, which is much more on brand for me than a short 40-something minute ramble that I did on my birthday. This is more like what you could expect from a Tristan live stream. So yeah, it's really just like a jumble of the things I've been thinking about in the last couple days. This is what this live stream is. It's just like all my thoughts just shared to the world. Hopefully it's interesting. 1 year later, lost 8 cats, made 0 friends. Moment of silence for all the cats. Well, it's okay. They have 9 lives. You know, Ivy made a funny comment about curiosity. She was speaking in favor of curiosity, and saying you should never lose your curiosity, stay curious, look at the world through a curious lens. And she said, people say curiosity killed the cat, but who cares? The cat has 9 lives. So doesn't matter. Stay curious. You'll be fine. And I thought that was hilarious, and I thought that was very fitting. Because, you know, it also is fitting because she believes in reincarnation. So I think she means that literally, like, you know, no matter how curious you are, everything will be fine. Like you'll still exist. Life after death is such an interesting concept because a lot of people don't believe in it, and I love diving down that rabbit hole. I love having those arguments because they're so interesting and fun, and it's one of those arguments that's less serious. We're not debating basic fundamental human rights. I'm not having a debate with you about whether or not trans people deserve to be bullied. I'm not having a debate, and again, they'll say that that's a straw man, but it's not. That is what happens. You're trying to act like, you know, I said trans people don't deserve to be bullied, and you're like, trans people deserve to groom my children? How dare you say that? It's like, I didn't say that. I didn't. I said they don't deserve to be bullied. And you put the words in my mouth that trans people deserve to groom children. When did I say that? I didn't. No one in their right mind would say that. Because it's insane. But that's the whole problem. They'll try to act like that's what you're saying, because that's an easier argument to take down. And they don't want to admit that what they're actually in favor of is stigmatizing a vulnerable group of people so that they receive more hate and abuse. As if the trans people are in charge of the world, as if they're some powerful organization. They're a minority, and they are constantly treated like shit. I don't think you people realize how loud and how dangerous and harmful your rhetoric is. When I see a video of an LGBTQ person, anybody who's in any way, shape, or form a minority, a woman, a fat woman, a person of color, a fat person of color who's also a woman and LGBT, you know, trans, whatever, like a combination of all this shit. Oh my God, the comment section is flooded with like shooting fire, like step on it, and you know, hundreds of thousands of likes on these comments, and bring back bullying, and oh my God, this is what the left wants, and Trump 2024, like flooded comment section. Hundreds of thousands of likes on comments of shit like that. That is the kind of shit that you guys are promoting. literally saying, bring back bullying. And again, those comments have like 50,000 likes, you know. So think about this for a minute. When you are commenting on, and what did this person do, by the way? You're commenting on the way they look, step on it. Literally, that's what these people say. You're commenting on the way this person looks, something that is clearly out of their control. And instead of having a fucking kind thought, your first thought is step on it. Is that really what you want to be representing? Do you really want to be on that side of history? When we look back at what these people stood for and fought for, do you want to be the one fighting for the step on it people? Or do you want to be the one saying treat people with kindness? That's what it's a question of. And you can try all you want to act like, well, we're the ones advocating for kindness. No, you're not. No, you are not. You are personally responsible for the deaths and all the suicides, all the self-hatred and bullying of LGBT people because you do nothing to stop it and you actively advocate for it. You say horrible things about these people, like Donald Trump saying that immigrants are eating cats and dogs. Do you know what that does? It adds stigma to immigrants. It makes people think, oh, they eat cats and dogs? Ew, what's wrong with them? They're monsters. And now you've just stigmatized immigrants. What exactly is an immigrant? How does one tell someone apart from someone who was born in the US and raised in the US versus someone who came to the US from another country, illegally or otherwise? How do you tell the difference? There are two things you can look for: appearance and accent. So what you're doing is anyone who isn't white with a traditional American accent could potentially be an immigrant, and there's no way for them to prove that they're not. Which means you could be implying about all of those people that they eat cats and dogs. So anybody who isn't traditionally white with an American accent could be eating cats and dogs. That's what you're saying. And that's what people are going to think about those people. So imagine being a person of color in the US with, God forbid, an accent that implies that maybe you weren't raised in the US. Although maybe you were just raised by a family who spoke like that. Maybe you actually were born in the US and your family just had that accent. You know? Maybe you speak a different language. The US doesn't even have an official language. Like, people who think it's English, it's like, no, anybody can speak any language they want in the US. A lot of people speak English, but it's not like the official language of the country. Anybody is allowed to speak whatever language they want. And a lot of people did come here legally, and there's no way to tell them apart from the people who came here illegally. So all you're doing is stigmatizing an entire group of people, and imagine being that person. Imagine, it's not like it's up to you, you know, especially if you were a kid, it's not like you made the choice, if you were just brought there, you know, by your parents. Now everyone is gonna think that you eat cats and dogs. Imagine having to explain that to someone that you don't. Imagine growing up and experiencing that level of racism. It is racism. Call it what it is, for the love of God. And it's insane that no one calls that racism, and people just buy right into it. I wonder if the people in Springfield made a lot of friends looking for all of those cats. Oh, God, that's a good joke. I like that. Ties everything together, all the ramblings that I've been saying. But yeah, you know, it's unfortunate that people don't seem to realize that you're literally just stigmatizing an entire group of people and adding fuel to the fire. You can't help it if you're not white or if you have an accent. You just do. And it doesn't mean that you came to the US illegally. And even if you did, that's not your neighbor's business, you know? Like, but they're going to think it's their business, and they're going to start saying some really nasty shit to you. And they might feel justified if they have proven that you're illegal. They might feel justified because, well, you're not legally allowed to be here, so I can say whatever slur and shit I want to. That's what these people do. Underneath all of it is hatred, bigotry, and racism. They're trying so hard to pretend that, but it's illegal. Why is that controversial? I promise you, underneath it is racism. Yes, you're good comedic relief. But yeah, and everyone needs that. Everyone could use some comedic relief. I try to do that too, to be fair. Sometimes I lean too far in one direction. Sometimes I'm all comedic relief. Sometimes I'm no comedic relief. But I would like to have a little bit more of a balance, and I'm always trying. But I heard my grandma go, "Oh," at the top of the stairs. Um, I don't know what that was in response to, but anyway, with the LGBT people and all of that, it's the same thing. Like they can't help it. They can't help the way they look. And why shouldn't they be allowed to dress how they want to dress? If a man wants to wear a dress, if a woman has a beard, who gives a flying fuck that you would look at a human being? And I was thinking of the friend that I was talking about earlier. He has kind of a high voice. Like, I guess you would call it a gay voice, right? Imagine looking at my friend, and I'm sure this would I'm sure there are people who would say this to him. I haven't seen anyone say this to him, but I'm sure it would happen. You look at him and say, I don't know that I want you around my kid because I don't know if my kid is, old enough to understand why you talk like that or why you dress like that or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, um, by the way, did I say my friend's name? I hope I didn't, but let me know if I said his name because I'm trying not to like, involve other people unnecessarily. So if I accidentally said his name, let me know, but I don't think I did. But anyway, yeah, like just because that's again what I was thinking about earlier today, and I was like, imagine saying that to a human being. You know what your kid isn't old enough to understand? Hatred and bigotry and stigma. Okay, you didn't catch me saying his name. I probably didn't then. Um, your kid isn't old enough to understand that. You're afraid to explain the concept of why someone might have like a higher voice. You're afraid to explain the concept of why a man might hold hands with another man or a woman might hold hands with another woman, although that's more normal. Women are more affectionate toward each other even when they're straight. But still, why a woman might have a picture of her wife on her desk. You know, you're afraid to explain that to a kid, but you'll happily explain why your kid should be judging those people and afraid of them and thinking of them as dangerous and predatory. What you should be teaching your kid isn't LGBT people are predators. You should be teaching them no one has the right to touch you, and anyone who tries to corner you and make you feel like you have to give them something, whether it be a family member, someone who claims to know a family member, any person, whether it be a stranger, someone you know, someone in power, a teacher, no one has the right to touch you. No one has the right to your body. Um, and if anyone ever puts you in a situation like that, where they're promising that you're going to get something out of it, or they're complimenting you and telling you that, you're way smart, you're really smart for your age, you're ahead of your peers, that's grooming, okay? Tell your kids what to actually look for so that they can spot it when it's happening. Instead of just telling them people to avoid, tell them what behavior to look out for, so that they know what is unacceptable from an adult. And unfortunately, a lot of parents don't do that because they're bigoted and hateful, and they just want to blame all problems that kids experience on LGBT people. So, Ron Garcia, is Kamala Harris really black with 3 laughing emojis in all caps? Are you Dave? Because that sounds like a Dave thing to say. Completely unrelated to what I'm talking about. Clearly not in favor of Kamala Harris. Yeah, that's Dave. 100%. How annoying. Sort of off topic, I am really fascinated by the gay voice thing in a biological and sociological sense, besides ample anecdotal evidence. There have been studies to where it is evident in someone ... I'm guessing there's about to be another paragraph. I'm surprised I haven't finished this. I really don't drink that much. long before they're of age, know they're gay, know what that even means, or have entered puberty. Why, it's almost genetic something. Can't identify it, though. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I feel like a lot of gay adults knew that they were gay, or other people could tell they were gay when they were younger, because of the voice, because of a lot of shit like that. And some of them have some control over it. Like, you can like try to, you know, deepen your voice and talk a certain way and act a certain way. You can have like certain demeanor and shit. But you're it's like it's not organic, and you're not going to be doing that when you're a little kid. You may do that when you are around other boys, when you're in school and you start noticing the way they behave and you want to fit in and blend in. But when you're a little kid, you don't give a shit about blending in. You're just going to be yourself, and you're going to be noticeably more flamboyant than other boys. It's fascinating. It's funny, and Larry David did a whole Curb Your Enthusiasm about it, because there was this little like 7-year-old named Greg who was like the fashion and all of this shit, and Larry's like, oh, and it was the kid's birthday, and he was like, what should I get him for his birthday? I can't get him a football. Can't get him a baseball. And his mom's like, why not? And he's like, ugh. So then he winds up getting the kid a sewing machine. And the mom gets angry and she's like, what are you trying to turn him gay? You're getting him a sewing machine? And he's like, I think he might already be gay. Because when the kid opened the sewing machine, he screamed and he was like, a sewing machine! Oh my god, I'm gonna crochet a pillow! And he ran off into the other room. It was hilarious. That kid is a really funny actor. Um, I haven't seen him in too much else, but I saw him in like one other thing. He's very, very funny. Um, I want to say there's a movie. I think it's called Drunk Parents. I could be wrong, but I think there's a movie called Drunk Parents with Alec Baldwin and somebody else. I can't remember. Um, and he's in that. And you know what? I think his character's name is Tristan in that movie. Again, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. It's just kind of funny. Um, and again, he was very fruity in that. So I think that's just the way that kid is. I bet Larry David came up with the idea for that episode. I'm gonna report the Dave comment. Hide user on this channel. Yep. Goodbye. So yeah, right. What prompts that? Would think it would be hormonal or genetically identified, but as studies have, excuse me, tried, none have yet to identify why. I'm so curious, but again, not a cat, so it's okay. Yeah, I mean, personally, I think that it's less about genetics. Although I feel like there was evidence that there was a gay gene, but it's in my mind it's less about genetics and more just about like a soul, and this is it. I believe that we're more than just our bodies. I was listening to this really interesting philosophical, not a debate, but this thing that my friend sent me on this channel that he, I think, is in charge of like monitoring to some level. It was something to do with where he works and what he does. And they have a bunch of philosophers and shit discussing topics. And this one guy, he was discussing the concept of free will is what he was doing. And so the way that he explained some things, I found it really interesting. He explained that there's different ways to look at it. I'm not even going to try to paraphrase. If I can find the video, I might put a link in the comments or the description or something. But he was basically saying that there is a debate about a human being, or not a human being, a living thing. Is there a difference between an apple and a bird or something like that? and explaining how, as we evolved, just life, not humans, but just like living conscious beings, there are certain situations where it could not be predicted what the individual is going to do, which is an argument in favor of free will, because if you are suggesting that everything is just a program, and you could imagine like you build a robot, right? And you put these programs in, and you're like, and in this situation you'll do this, and then blah blah blah, and it has to decide in any given scenario how it's going to respond, and that is based on the programming that you put in the robot or the AI, whatever. Excuse me, it's the soda. Sun-kissed. So I thought that was interesting because there is something different about living things that, a robot you could understand, what the programming is, and I guarantee you if you were to rewind time, it would do the same thing every time because that is the programming. However, a human being, or any living thing, a bird, a spider, even a germ, if it's alive, you can't confidently predict what it's going to do with an algorithm based on its programming because the programming is so complex. It goes beyond something that we're capable of recreating. We can't like actually create something that has something that is, you know, like a replica of free will. Free will seems to be unique to living things. And some people say that free will doesn't exist because, if you rewound time, you would do the same thing every time. But that's not necessarily true, you know? Um, Even if all the circumstances were the same, you might not necessarily have done that. You could have been one thought away from doing something different. And your thoughts aren't predestined or written, You don't know, you don't always know what you're going to do before you do it. And the reason that certain thoughts pop into your head, some of it is outside factors, and some of it is just you. And I find that fascinating because it is a little bit complex and hard to explain and hard to understand. And you do have to really dive deep into it. It's a whole thing. But just the concept of a human being its own thing, of a living thing, not just being part of a programming, but actually having something inside or underneath or behind it that is unique. You could call it a soul, consciousness, whatever. It's you. There's you, and then there's your body. And there's the physical stuff that can be measured, and then there's the stuff that just is behind it that scientists are sort of puzzled by. And the window to life, to existence, to the human experience, the proof of life is our experience of it. Without consciousness, without the ability to experience things, there'd be no proof that anything even existed. You're real because you see it, you hear it, you feel it. Yeah, you smell it, all the senses. And with all of that removed, is there still you? Is there still consciousness? Is there still awareness somehow? There's another argument that I think people made in favor of a soul. Like if you could picture if you could picture yourself being invisible, and you look down and you don't see a body, and you look in the mirror and you don't see a body, but somehow you still know you're there. It's just interesting. These are just interesting thoughts and things that I've listened from philosophers and professors and shit. People who know what they're talking about. It's their whole job. And even when it's their job, they still have different opinions. They study these things and they don't come to a unanimous conclusion. Some people say, well, I like this more. And some people are like, well, I like this theory more. People still cannot agree on this shit, which is what's even the most fascinating part to me. Um, because it just shows how little proof there really is. It's sort of like religion, you know? People draw opinions, except the difference is with science, they respect each other's opinions. They're not saying, I'm right and you're wrong. You're so lost. You followed the wrong religion. You're gonna go to hell. They're saying, yeah, I understand why you might have chosen that, but personally, I would rather be here. I think this makes more sense. And the other person's like, well, I think this makes more sense, but I respect your decision. That's the nice thing about science. They're nicer to each other. They can respect each other's differences and opinions. Religious people are assholes to each other and literally kill each other. So many wars fought based on religious hatred. It's insane. And people just beaten up and bullied over religion just because, I don't know, I'm different, I'm gay, I'm trans, I'm a woman, I'm a person of color, whatever the hell it might be. Um, Maybe I'm just an atheist, and you find that out about me, and all of a sudden I'm a pariah. So yeah, religious people are fucking scary. That's neither here nor there. I so want to be invisible to stand in between two mirrors and finally see the full tunnel to infinity. Oh yeah. Oh wow. That's quite a thought. Because your head blocks it, or what? Between two mirrors. I'm trying to picture that. I'm between two mirrors. If I made them face each other and I was invisible, what would that grant me? I feel like I'm missing something. Because a mirror. Oh. Oh. Okay. I think I got that now. Yeah. Anyway, my brain was just catching up with what I was saying. um. Sorry, that was ugly. I think I'm starting to get tired. I don't even know what time it is. Try to put mirrors facing each other and try to see down into the center. Interesting. I guess at a certain point, my head would be blocking it and I wouldn't be able to see fully into the center, into infinity. No matter what I put there, even if it was just a camera. It's always bugged me since I was a kid. That's why I wanted to be invisible. It's the first thing I'd do before stealing cool stuff. Oh man, if I were invisible, I would probably, man, I'd be scaring the shit out of people. Anybody who doesn't believe in ghosts, first thing I would do, I'd be like, "Whoa," I'd be fucking haunting the shit out of people. Oh, that'd be hilarious. Just any, not that I really care, because you don't have to believe in ghosts. You don't have to believe in psychics or readings or any of that shit. I find it fun. And I think it's fun. Oh, I remember what I was saying now. I got sidetracked. Because do you remember when I started talking about Donald Trump and the eating the dogs and, how you're debating basic human rights versus a more fun, lighthearted debate where you're just talking about does free will exist or psychics real and shit like that. That's a fun debate. You can sit down and you can have those discussions with people, and both people are looking for the truth. Both people are interested in finding the truth. And they're not hateful, they're not judging each other, they're just fascinated. There's a mutual respect. There's like, I'm sure you're smart and you drew the conclusions you drew for a good reason, and you're both presuming that about each other. That's a fun foundation for a debate. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't know to look for that in the foundation of a debate, and they will have a debate where the other person thinks you're really stupid. The other person is like, Oh my God, how could you draw that conclusion? What the fuck is wrong with you? Or maybe you think that about them, and maybe you're totally right. Like, maybe they've drawn some insane conclusion, but you could at least try giving them the benefit of the doubt. And, but it's only going to work if they do the same for you. And unfortunately, if they're really that stupid, they're probably not going to. But, yeah, just don't have a debate with those people at that point. It's not going to go anywhere. They're probably going to straw man you. Excuse me. That's not helpful. I'm going to give you an example. There's so many specifics that need to be decided. Like, are the clothes you're wearing visible? Probably, so you'd have to be naked. I wouldn't mind that. It's fun to be naked. When do things become not invisible? Like, what about pee? Yeah. Is your pee immediately visible once it leaves? There's so many questions. Yeah, that's something that I've thought about too, because anytime there's like teleportation or invisibility or anything like that, you always have to wonder, where technically do I begin and end? Like, what is the difference between the outside world and the tip of my finger? You know? Like, why is this where I end? Is it my hair? Is my hair me? When it falls off, is it still me? If I shaved my head when I was invisible, would the hair landing on the ground still be invisible? Would there just be invisible hair in somebody's house forever? And then one day when I decided to become visible again, would it then appear? The pee thing, if I decided to take a dump in somebody's house, would there be an invisible log of shit? And if they stepped on it, would all of a sudden their foot smell, and they wouldn't know why because they couldn't see anything, but they could feel it. Like how is it decided? Would my clothes be invisible because they were touching me? Is it whatever's in physical contact with me? So if I take my clothes off, my clothes become visible. Or, and again, where is the line drawn? At what point is it officially decided that my clothes are off, Um, like, are they on just because I technically have them on over my shoulders? Is it on if I just drape it over me? If I just throw a hoodie like over my neck, and then if I just slightly lift it from my neck, is it still invisible because it's touching my fingers? Like, does it have to be touching my skin? If the hoodie is touching, the hoodie, I don't know. Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many confusing ways to think about this shit. And it's fun and it's fascinating. And I wanted to talk about an argument that I had on Discord in a group video call thing with this guy who has his own channel called God Ain't Real, Prove Me Wrong. And I generally tend to agree with the arguments he makes, but I think his attitude is dog shit. I think his demeanor is dog shit. I think he's kind of an asshole. But I generally like some of the points that he makes. But I decided, since I typically agree with him, that there wasn't really a point in me arguing with him. But he was asking for people to step up and argue with him. So I was like, well, I don't really disagree with you on many things, but I probably don't share your views on like spirituality. And so then he started condescendingly saying, okay, why do you believe in a spirit? And he went on this whole uninvited monologue about, the concept of being schizophrenic. And, if I saw a big monster in the street and I told somebody about it, what logical reason do they have to believe that I actually did see a monster in the street? And why should I believe that I really saw that when there's so much evidence of people hallucinating things and imagining things? Like, what proof do I actually have that that's really happening? And I said, well, I didn't say that. I wasn't given a chance to say very much. This guy interrupted me many times. I could hardly speak. So this was awful. If one cries, do floating tears appear until they fall? If a hair detaches, does it become visible that second? What if you sweat? I don't know. It's crazy. The only way it would work is if it's something that is touching your skin, So the clothes would stay invisible because they're in contact with you. But anyway, so this guy was being a dick, and I said, all right, well, let me give you an example. I'm not trying to prove anything, but I'm curious what you would make of this situation. So I explained something that happened. It was a situation where I had a healer. Her name is Raven. I actually had an appointment with her after my last live stream. That was why I had to end it. On my birthday. She's an incredible person. I've known her for like 7 years, 8 years. And she helped me a lot, opening my mind to different possibilities, and healed me a lot, and gave me a lot of support, just in general. Just an incredible person. I recommend, if you can afford it, I recommend working with her. She's like a therapist. And her rates are similar to what you would get if you went to a therapist that wasn't covered by insurance. Maybe even cheaper. I mean, because therapists charge like, $200, $300. Therapists are expensive if you're not covering it by insurance. It's a lot. So she's cheaper than that, and in my opinion, she's better than that. You get more out of it. Had my mind open once. Thank God for stitches. Very funny. But yeah, we had an issue. My dog was peeing all the time. Peeing in the house, there was one time where we let her out, and she was outside. She was out there for a couple minutes. She went to the door to come in. We opened it. Dog came in. Took 2 steps into the house, squatted down, peed, and then went back out. And I thought, this is backwards. This bitch just came into the house and peed and then went back out. What do we do about this? And we had never had an issue. This was our 4th dog, all Cairn Terriers, same breed, same gender. They're all female Cairn Terriers. These tiny, cute little things. Same as Toto from The Wizard of Oz. Same breed. They're adorable. They're my grandma's favorite breed, which is, why I think we get them. But they're so cute, and we never had an issue like this. It was so weird, So we actually had to call a dog specialist, and she was like saying, positive reinforcement, give her a treat every time she comes in. And then we started doing that, but it was still happening. We had to figure out if she had a bladder problem. And while there was something, it wasn't the reason she was peeing in the house. It wasn't that. Because it wasn't that bad, whatever the issue was. So we were at a loss, and I said, hey, I know this lady named Raven, and on her website it says she works with pets. We should book a session with her. So my grandma was like, okay, I'll pay for it. We'll get a session for the dog. So I got out my iPad. I set it up on the computer. The dog had a drink and went and did this like old man cough. And my grandma was like, can we ask her why she coughs like that? Because she coughs like that every time she drinks water. And, I was asking the vet about it, and they don't know what it is. So I was like, yeah, we can ask her about that too. I didn't even realize that was something she did every time she drank water, but I was like, I guess I have noticed her making that noise a lot, and I've made fun of her for it because she sounds like an old man, and she's a tiny little, just this little tiny dog, just so small, and making that noise. It did not match. Her voice is normally very high and shrill, and this was like, it was really weird. So she did that right before the session, and my grandma was like, we should ask her why she coughs. So we sit down at the computer desk. I set my iPad, I lean it on the computer, and my grandma's sitting next to me. I'm holding the dog in my lap, and we FaceTime Raven. She's young. The vet should have looked into that. Is the vet shit? I don't remember. To be perfectly honest, I don't remember if my grandma said she brought it up to the vet or not. That part is a blur. All I know is my grandma didn't know why it was happening. I don't remember what she had already attempted to do about it at that point. So, you would have to ask her. I don't have that information offhand. All I know was that the issues we had tried to do a lot about different things. You know, we had taken her to the vet a number of times, so I'm sure it was brought up. And it was a good vet, so I don't think it was that. Um, but you know, whatever we did, we still didn't have an answer. So we sat there with Raven, and she said hi. We didn't talk much. I just said, "Can we figure out why she's peeing in the house?" And right away, Raven started working on the dog, and Daisy's eyes closed. You know, Raven just was like doing energy work. She started like moving her hands. Daisy started yawning. The whole room felt different. Like the energy just shifted, and everybody, you know, could feel it. And it made Daisy start yawning repeatedly. And she's you know, Raven was explaining stuff that happened. She was like, I think, you know, there was a kid who pulled her hair when she was at the kennel that, you know, you got her from. So she's really, you know, sensitive and nervous. The peeing in the house thing, we're, you know, I'm gonna tell her not to do that anymore. and and then she did that, and she was like, you know, I guess she got some kind of affirmative, like, you know, that she would try. um and I think, you know, part of the issue was she gets too excited or something, you know, that there was some explanation for it. But anyway, um we you know, we forgot about the coughing thing, and all of a sudden Raven was like, there's something like blocking her airway. And I was like, oh shit. Yeah, we were gonna ask. She coughs every time she drinks water. And Raven was like, you know, I was like, are we gonna have to get her like some kind of surgery? Is that gonna like is there something physically blocking? And Raven goes, I'm gonna clear it. And she starts going like this, and I'm like, I look at my grandma, like, she's gonna clear it. And again, Daisy's yawning. So I was like, is that it? And she's like, yeah, that should be it. I took care of it. So I don't remember how much else happened in the session. Um, but after the session, we put Daisy down. She had a drink of water and she didn't cough. And my grandma and I looked at each other and we were like, oh my God. And then that was it. She hasn't coughed since that day. Like, that solved whatever the problem was. And I was like, you know, that kind of really shocked my grandma. Um, but I had already had her do stuff like that with me. Like, I was starting to get a cold, and she did something, and I all my symptoms went away. So, you know, she had done some incredible shit in the past. Um, so it didn't surprise me as much, but my grandma was very shocked by that. And the peeing wasn't as much of a problem. We had another session for her a couple months after that, and right away, um, Raven said that my dog was like, "Tell them I'm trying, tell them I'm trying not to pee in the house." It was so cute. It was very funny because it sounded like something my dog would say, like, you know, she didn't know my dogs. She was working on both of them. We had another one at the time, and when she was describing what was in their heads without knowing anything about them, she perfectly nailed what we knew about them, their personalities. She, you know, I think, you know, like, oh my God, I can't even explain it. It was spot on. It was funny. It was comedically spot on. So I without sharing as much detail as I just did now, because like I said, he didn't give me the stage for very long, this guy. I shared that story about the, you know, her getting rid of the coughing, and his reaction was, um, he called me a liar. He just said, but that just didn't happen. Um, and I said, but if it did happen, what would your explanation be for that? Like, that, I'm curious. If that happened to you, if that was you with your dog, and he goes, well, if it were my dog, I would have taken my dog to the vet. And I'm like, that is beside the point. I'm asking you, if this happened, what would you think of it? How would that, you know, how would you process that information? What would you think that would mean? Would you think that you're going crazy? Would you think that she somehow lied? Would you think that it was just a coincidence? Like, your dog had an issue where she coughed every time she drank water, and in the span of a 30-minute session, just completely fixed that problem coincidentally at the same time that someone said they were going to fix it for her, while not even being in the same room. It's not like she did something to the dog, you know? I had a friend who I told this to, and his theory was that she made a sound that, a human couldn't hear, but the sound healed it. If that is possible, if there's a noise you can make that does that, then I would like to know what it is. But no, that doesn't cut it. That doesn't track either. Um, but yeah, I think that situation, one of the only ways that you can really say that it makes sense is if I'm lying, and I'm not, you know? That did actually happen exactly how I just described it. I have nothing to gain from lying about that. Um, like because I find it interesting. I'm not trying to prove a point or trick anyone. My goal isn't to convince anyone of anything. My goal is to learn and uncover things and have interesting discussions with people. So I wouldn't have anything to gain by lying. Now, granted, that guy didn't know that about me, but I found it interesting that he couldn't come up with an explanation other than "you must be lying." That just sounds like a bullshit story. And he moved on from it so quick and continued on another monologue. And and I said, "Can we circle back to that? Because I'm waiting for an explanation." And he's like, "I'm not going to give you an explanation. I don't you were supposed to prove that God is real and you just offered me some bullshit story about a dog." And I was like, "It's not a bullshit story." And he goes, "Yes, it is." You know, like you just get interrupted and shit. That kind of attitude. And I said, "Listen, if you can offer an alternative, if you can tell me what you would have interpreted that as, if the same thing had happened to you, then maybe I'll consider that." But he couldn't do it. Like, it just, anything that he did suggest, I could rule out. He suggested that maybe I'm crazy, that maybe I need to go get diagnosed with like schizophrenia or something. He suggested a couple things that were just, I knew, I was like, "Oh, that's not it." Because again, it doesn't track. It's not consistent with who I am in my life. And he wouldn't know that about me because he didn't know who the fuck I was. It's just a stranger on Discord. But, you know, sometimes you just have to trust your instincts, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't challenge yourself. If you come to a conclusion and you know it's true, it's okay to listen to people who disagree with you and think that there's another explanation for it. Hear them out. It might turn out to be bullshit. It might be something that you can easily dismiss, but just in case it isn't, don't you want to at least know what it is? You know? If someone is telling you, for example, um, that, like, let's say, oh, I gotta think of a good example here. 'Cause otherwise, I'm not gonna make sense. Um, let's say you think that your husband is cheating on you, and you're confident in this, like you know something's up. um you smell somebody else on him, you know that there's an affair happening, and somebody else comes in and offers you another explanation, and they're like, maybe he's been trying out perfume at the store just because he's embarrassed to admit that he likes perfume. um you can consider that, and you can be like, "Well, I didn't think of that, but that's bullshit. Like, that's not it." And I know in my gut that that's not it. So that's the kind of thing I mean. Like, sometimes you hear it and you're like, "Well, I'll listen to what you're saying and I'll humor it," but at the same time, it's just you just know that it's bullshit. And you won't be able to confidently say that unless you hear what the person is going to suggest. So it's still nice to know, even if they make a stupid suggestion like he's trying on perfume, at least you heard them out, you know? At least you gave it a chance. You didn't just not even listen to what they had to say. Um, so ultimately, trust your instincts, but don't be stupid about it either, you know? You don't want to just run in blind. Um, so, yeah, I guess that's my thoughts on that. Um, but like I said, you can have respectful debates with people. They don't all have to be like that guy. I had another guy in that same little group call that the main guy left for a minute to go do something else, and some British guy spoke up, and he said, "I thought your dog story was interesting, and I'm not going to call you a liar." And I was like, "Thank you." Thank you for not presuming that I'm a liar, which is, again, not a respectful way to have a debate. When you've reached a point in a philosophical debate where you have to call the other person a liar, that's like, That's not a good place to be in a debate. It's embarrassing to have to call someone a liar. You don't want to have to do that. That almost feels like you don't have an argument at that point. The only way that you're confident in continuing the debate is if that other person isn't telling the truth. But what if they are? You won't even indulge the possibility. Um, so that guy said, I don't think you're a liar. And I guess I would say, if I could repeat it, an incident like that, it sounds incredible. But scientifically, I would have to be able to repeat it. And I said, that's fair. And so I was like, so hypothetically, if you had a magical incident with a dog's cough being cured, you know, over a video call, over FaceTime, you were able to do that again. You got 10 different dogs, and you made sure that there was no room for trickery. Maybe even you turn the volume off, or maybe you don't even have a FaceTime call. Maybe they do it over text. Maybe you text them and say, can you do this kind of energy work without being on a video call? That way you're cutting out any possibility that they're making a noise or something. They're not in the room. There's no way for them to touch the dogs in any way, shape, or form. And you could have the same thing recreated with 10 dogs. And, he was like, well, if that happened, then I would say, yeah, that's worth considering, that must be what's happening. So I was like, at least you can acknowledge that and think logically about it. But unfortunately, that guy wouldn't even humor the thought. So you need someone who will be able to humor the thought, who will be able to look at it in a scientific way instead of just laughing at it and treating it like it's a joke. Because that's all you need in science. If it can be repeated and studied in a closed environment like that, then do it. So there's a lot of ways to prove shit. The burden of proof of God being real is really on the religious who want to push it on others. If they believe it for themselves, sure, I don't care. If they want to push it on others, they can prove it. Yeah, that's totally fair. And that's why the guy saying God ain't real, prove me wrong, I agree with his rhetoric that, if you can't prove that he's wrong about God not being real, then, calm your tits. His argument was actually, I think it's called like igtheist or ignostic or something. His argument is that even the concept of God is too convoluted to dispute. Like, you can't even agree on what God means. Which God are we talking about? The Christian God, the Muslim God, the Jewish God? Which version of God? And what does God actually mean? Are we talking about in a generic concept of a universe creator? Like, God is just so convoluted that you can't even dispute whether or not he's real. It's just not the whole, is God real or not? What even is God? You got to answer that first. And there's no unanimous answer about what God is. Everybody has a different concept of God. So there's no way to say whether or not he's real. And I think that's a fair argument. 'Cause you can't even know what it is that you're disagreeing about. One of those general things that's improvable as far as our abilities go. Yep. And that's exactly why. Because, like, how can you prove something if you can't even come up with a solid agreement on what it is? But if you are trying, there's some things that can be disproven. Like, if you're trying to say that the Christian God is real, in a specific you're reading specific texts from a scripture of a Bible, because there's like a million different versions of Christianity too. There's so many different denominations, and all religions have like a bunch of, there's like, well, there's this version of it and this version of it and this, it's weird. But if you gave me a specific version of God and challenged me to disprove it, I probably could. I could tell you, well, here's something that this God supposedly did or said that I know it's incompatible with objective truth. Like, there's no way this happened. It's not even remotely possible. It's contradicting something that we know to be true. So it's impossible. Sort of like, I'll give you an example. If you tried to tell me that God is both all-powerful and all-knowing, but also has opinions and an ego, that makes no sense. If God is all-powerful and all-knowing and all-present and, all of the stuff that people say, then he is beyond ego. He's beyond a sense of identity and opinion. I think opinion is the lowest form of knowledge because you've sort of cut off further learning instead of having empathy and being willing to say, this person has a different experience than I do. Let me suspend how I feel and listen to their perspective. You're saying, I know how I feel. This is my opinion. It makes you more cynical and judgmental. And why would God, a being who is supposedly all good and all powerful and all present and all knowing, have an ego and have opinions? So I could already discount that. Clearly, that is a man-made invention, because that sounds a lot like a human being. Someone who wants to boast about their power and be like, I'm this big, powerful thing, but then they're just trying to shove their opinions down your throat and tell you how to live. It doesn't sound like God to me. Besides, you shouldn't have to take God's word for it because a lot of people say this about morality. This is my favorite argument against the whole how can you have morality without religion argument. I hate that so much because it's complete bullshit. And this is exactly why. If morality depends on religion and you need to read religious text in order to know the difference between right and wrong, which I think is fundamental, it's internal, it's not something you need to read in a book. But if your argument is that you need to read that in a book in order to know the difference between right and wrong, it should be internal, because if right and wrong is decided by God, right, and God is the creator of all things, then wouldn't his opinions on right and wrong feel like objective truth? Wouldn't they just line up with logic? I mean, God created all things, right? Which includes logical thinking and mathematical thinking. God is the reason that 1 + 1 = 2. So if God is the reason that there's right and wrong, shouldn't you be able to prove that mathematically and logically? Shouldn't you be able to logically decide without depending on his word that this is wrong? You could just say, this is wrong. I know this is wrong. And I don't need God to tell me that, because you don't need God to tell you 1 + 1 = 2. You don't need God to tell you a lot of things, because God is telling you these things just by the fact that you exist and all these things exist. They're all his creation. All of it came from him. So you shouldn't need to you shouldn't need to take his word for it in blind faith anyway, because, God created logic. You can use logic to decide what to do. It doesn't have to be just listen to his word. And how can you prove that that's his word anyway? How can you prove that that religious text wasn't just written by a human being? Maybe that human being was intuitive. Maybe that human being was in tune with some sort of higher power. And maybe it was originally perfect. Maybe that person who was in tune with some higher power, or people, wrote these religious texts, and they were perfect originally, but then as time went on, they got mistranslated and different versions, and people misinterpreted shit. There could be a million explanations for why religion is currently what it is today. But all I know for sure, all I can confidently say, is that a lot of the shit that's taught in the mainstream religions does not make fucking sense. It doesn't make sense. There's something missing. And I think the people who buy into it really need to start thinking a little bit more. They need to start questioning things and not just so desperately clinging to something that they're used to and familiar with. Let go a little bit. It's okay to let go of control. It's okay to say these three beautiful words: I don't know. There's nothing wrong with not knowing. There's nothing wrong with being in the dark about something. It's okay to accept the mystery of the universe and to be constantly uncovering new things about how things work and why things work, and to always keep your mind open, but to lock yourself down and say, I figured it all out and everyone else is just behind me. They're going to have to catch up. You're putting yourself in a really unfair position, and it's going to be hard to have authentic friendships when everyone who doesn't share your exact set of beliefs is seen as inferior. They're just behind you. They're not quite there yet. And with the permanence of the concept of heaven and hell, what you're thinking isn't just that maybe they're behind me, but eventually they'll catch up. What you're thinking is they're currently 100% wrong, and you know, if they agree with me entirely, then they'll be 100% right. But if we both die tomorrow, I'm going to heaven and they're going to be tortured forever. My best friend, who I love and respect, is making choices that is going to get them tortured for eternity. Something about that just doesn't sit well with me. I don't want a friend who thinks that I'm going to be tortured forever. Because if you actually believe that about me, doesn't that presume some level of stupidity on my end? Doesn't it almost suggest that you think I deserve to be tortured? I mean, this is a system that you seem to believe in. You're not my friend saying, it really sucks that things work this way. I wish you could get into heaven with me. This is so messed up. I almost don't even want to go to heaven if I can't be with you. You're not choosing your friend. You're saying, oh, my poor friend, they don't know the truth. They don't know what I know. I'm gonna go to heaven, and that poor lost stupid soul, he's doing things the wrong way and he's going to be tortured for eternity, and that's what he deserves because that's the way the system is set up, and it's a system I believe in and uphold. And I put my whole life and devotion into believing that the system is perfect. And because God designed it, and God is perfect, and God knows everything. So if God decides to torture my friend for eternity, my friend must deserve it. These people do not think this shit through and realize how fucking insulting that is. You cannot be friends with these people. It's a hollow friendship, period. You know, if you've ever wondered why it feels awkward to have religious friends and you can't exactly explain it, but you just feel weird around them, that's why. All this unspoken shit. Because they're trying to act like, well, we just love everyone and we want to be friends with it. We don't care if you're gay or if you're an atheist. We don't care if you're liberal. Conservatives can be friends with liberals. No, they can't. Because try as you might to act innocent, the shit that you people believe and uphold doesn't quite line up. You are treating people like they don't fucking matter, and that is the bottom line. It's not about the details of whether or not your religion is true. It's about how we relate to each other. And regarding morality and, you know, the difference between right and wrong, it is innate. We do know the difference, and I know that it's wrong to treat other people like they don't matter, to be disrespectful to other people. Because think about it logically. We all share a planet with one another, right? We're all here together. So of course the basis for right and wrong is how we treat each other. If we treat each other like shit, that is wrong. And what is heaven if not filled with a bunch of people who treat each other like shit? What do we do when we go to church? You know, we probably are just comparing ourselves to other people or selfishly praying for shit. Oh, my sister needs an operation on her crotch. You know, George Carlin joke. Sorry. Um, but, you know, you go to church and you're just praying that God helps you with your math test or God saves your dying aunt in the hospital. And then if he doesn't, then it was his will. But if it's his will and he's going to do what he wants anyway, why even bother praying in the first place? Inconsistent logic with these people, and they're all going to go to heaven, and then what? They're just going to these people don't even like each other most of the time. I mean, they're just everything about them is so fake. They're so performative. They're just doing it so that they'll get into heaven. They don't even know what the fuck their values are. They don't know who they are. They force themselves to be a cookie cutter mold so that they can get into heaven, and then what? What the fuck are they going to do for forever, eternity in clouds? Just sit around and stare at each other and then be like, now what? Eventually, with no because this is the problem. A lot of these people always have a villain to take down. A big problem with religion, there's always an enemy. There's always the devil. There's always this problem that they have to focus on and take it down. You're the problem. You're the problem. You know, they're always mad at somebody. And it distracts them from how boring and bleak their lives are and how the fact that they don't know anything about themselves. They have no personality. When they're dead and they go to their version of what they think is going to happen, when they go to heaven and they're sitting there forever, they're going to be bored to shit. And they're going to have to start paying better attention to themselves. And they're going to realize they're all very different. And do you think they're really going to learn to accept those differences, given the way they treat other people who are different? Probably the fuck not. So, yeah, they're going to realize they're not all as similar as they think. Some of them are going to realize that they're gay, you know, and then maybe there's going to be some gay hookups in heaven, and then God's going to catch them and be like, oh, I let you in heaven because you turned to me and you gave your immortal soul to me, and now you're betraying me after I let you into heaven? You know what they say? And they genuinely believe this. Once you give your life up to God, he will make you straight. He will make you cisgender if you're trans. They really believe this shit. And then when you get to heaven, you won't want to be gay. But what if you do? They won't even indulge the question because it's not even a remote possibility in their heads. But as someone who actually pays attention to human behavior, someone who actually knows how we think, operate, psychology, that whole aspect of things, I promise you, 100%, if you put all of these Christian conservatives in a place that had no problems, you cut out all the bullshit from life, all the bigotry, all the you just put them in a place where there's no need for money. Everything they need is provided for them. It's like you create a simulation of heaven. Everything they need is right there. All they have to do is live in harmony with one another. 100 fucking percent, some of them are going to turn out to realize that they're gay if given enough time, because they're going to have nothing to do but self-reflect, and it's not going to be long before they realize that that's all they have left to do, because they're going to get bored really quick. So we should do that as an experiment. Kidnap these people, put them in a simulation where there's nothing to worry about, no problems, and just wait. See how long it takes. Now, they might argue that in heaven, they would be internally and fundamentally changed in a way that, you know, that makes it impossible for them to be gay, or impossible for whatever, for human shortcomings to exist. But if that's the case, are you even you at that point? Are you still conscious? Because it almost sounds at that point like God is tampering with your free will. And if God is tampering with your free will, doesn't that contradict something that's like a fundamental belief about why God gave you free will in the first place? I thought free will was the reason that there's rape and murder and all sorts of horrible things, right? Isn't that the reason God allows this stuff to happen? Because he won't tamper with your free will, but then when you get to heaven, he forces you to be happy and tampers with your free will? What the fuck? And, another good question that people ask about heaven is like, what if your son doesn't get to heaven for whatever reason? Maybe your son just decides to be an atheist. He's a totally good person. He follows all the same morals you do. He just doesn't pray to the same God, and he doesn't get to heaven. Could you really sit in heaven knowing that your son is being tortured in hell and be happy? Could you really enjoy paradise knowing your baby is being tortured even though he didn't do anything wrong? Like, he wasn't a serial killer. He just literally prayed to a different God, or didn't pray at all, That's all he did. Could you really sit there comfortably knowing he's being tortured and not try to save him? Even if you thought, well, that's his fault, he wasn't praying, wouldn't you then think, but he deserves a second chance. That's my baby. If we gave him a second chance, God, I promise, he'd be good in heaven. Just give him one more chance to pray. I'm sure now that he sees hell is real, he'll believe you and he'll pray to you, and God will go, no, too late. And you know that too. And I'm all powerful and all knowing. So the way I do things is the way things are done, and you should accept that. Wouldn't you start to get angry with God and say, well, fuck you then. You're not going to let me be with my son? But no, apparently you wouldn't say that, because you must be tampered with in some way, because that's a normal human reaction. And apparently you wouldn't have that reaction because heaven is perfect. So what, you just lose your humanity? Who even are you at that point? Not that kid's mother. That's fucking for sure. So yeah, that's the God that a lot of people believe in. They clearly do not think about this shit. And what I find so funny is religious people are like, oh, atheists they just need to find God. Believe me. They've found him. I guarantee you, atheists know more about religion than religious people. Atheists have studied all versions of different religions and different Bibles more than the people who believe in them, and that's why they're atheists. That is practically a guarantee. One of those things that's okay, I remember that. Okay. All rocks are soft and squishy until they're touched. Prove me wrong. LOL, just because one can't doesn't mean it's not bullshit. Yeah, exactly. I can't prove that rocks are soft and squishy until they're, in contact with something else. But it's pretty obvious that that's not the case. It's okay to make assumptions sometimes. Like where would we be without assumptions? Everything requires at least some level of assumption. Why do they want God to exist anyway? Who wants the boss around watching all the damn time? I know, right? No money, they have all the basics, and no outside influence, I think that's called prison. And from what I heard, they totally do end up doing the gay things. Thank you. I didn't even think of that. Literally, though, you put a bunch of straight men in prison, and suddenly anal sex is a normal thing that they'll joke about. They'll be like, "Oh, you're gonna, they're gonna tear you a new one in prison." Gay rape jokes with men in prison are so normalized that you'll just see it in casual TV show. You know, like there was a rapist in a TV show that was not like the kind of show that, you know, it's not about that kind of shit. You know, it was more about like solving crimes and mysteries and stuff. And this guy was in jail for rape. And the detective talking to him after he got out, he was on parole, said, "Yeah, I bet you got a taste of your own medicine when you were in there." And I'm thinking to myself, is it really that normal that even a detective in a professional situation in a TV show like this would make a comment like that? It is. It's that normal. Like, and you know, I know they've done studies like it's not about the gayness, it's about like power dynamic and shit, but still, I find it interesting. You know, I just find it fascinating. Um, but imagine a place that's not, you know, dark and dreary and you're given bare minimum needs and sort of, you know, sometimes even forced to do manual labor. Um, that kind of sucks. I'm thinking more like a place where you have freedom, you know? Think about if you've ever seen The Good Place, this you know, paradise, this big wide neighborhood where you can just do whatever you want. Everything's perfect. Um, you're gonna end up you're gonna feel not like you're a prisoner, but like you've won and you're in paradise. And you're gonna want to hook up with your hot neighbor at some point. You might even become bi-curious. You might be completely straight, but you're just like, why not? Just have an experiment. And who gives a shit? You at that point, who does give a shit? You've won, right? God's not gonna change his mind and send you to hell. Isn't that the whole point? That heaven and hell are permanent. Once you're in hell, that's it. No saving you from that. Once you're in heaven, you've done it. You're perfect. That's kind of what this whole basis relies on, is that it's permanent. And I completely disagree with that. You know, as a psychic medium, there's no way that's true. Like 100%. The afterlife does not look like you end up in either a good place or a bad place, and then that's it forever. It's a lot more fluid than that. It's actually pretty similar to life, you know? And the most accurate depiction I've seen of the afterlife is probably a movie called Defending Your Life with Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep. It's a funny movie. Albert Brooks wrote it, I think. I think it's his movie. Um, and he's a good comedian. He was the voice of he was Marlin in Finding Nemo. Um, Meryl Streep is also amazing, but just it's a great movie, and it's not like, you know, obviously for the movie's sake, um, they made it look a little bit more organized and perfect, but that is effectively what it is. You know, it's very very similar to that. So I liked that they sort of addressed that, and but it definitely isn't permanent heaven and permanent hell. But you know, that's what these people believe, and if that were the case and they won, at that point, what would they have to gain from holding back their desires? You know, what if they give into the desire? I guess what they believe is that the desires are caused by Satan, right? And there's no room for Satan in heaven, so they wouldn't have those desires. So these people actually believe that they just wouldn't have those desires at all. Um, which again begs the question, are you even you at that point? You know, how can you tell what makes you you? And it also begs the question, why does God put us through being human on earth first, giving us the chance to be manipulated by Satan and sent to hell? Why even put us through that? Especially since we could die at any time, right? Like, what if we're just having a bad day and we give in to Satan, but the next day we would have done the right thing? That's a point that the Good Place tried to make. What that kind of system can't tell you is who this person could have become tomorrow. And that is a beautiful sentiment. It can't tell you who that person would become tomorrow because you didn't give that person a chance. They just happened to die on a bad day for them. and then they spend eternity being tortured forever. That doesn't sound right. It doesn't make sense. If that is how things work, I would like to speak to the manager. You know what I mean? Like, it's that bad. So I don't know why anyone the fuck would want to believe that. That there are not only people who believe that, but who actually want that to be the way things are. They're like, because it brings me peace of mind to know bad people are tortured forever. Why would you want to think about anyone being tortured forever? That brings you peace? To picture someone being tortured? My God. I don't care how bad the person is or what they did to you. I would hope that you could have the compassion to hope that instead of being tortured forever, that they learn their lesson and they heal and they grow and then they become better. I would hope that you would hope that for them and that you'd be disappointed if that never happened to them, if they continued to just stay on that low vibration and not ever learn or grow. That should be a tragedy, not what you're hoping for. But, go try and insert logic into these people's heads. Good luck. I was much more disappointed when I learned Santa wasn't real than when I learned God wasn't. Yeah, because Santa brings you shit. What does he do? He decides if you're naughty or nice, and then he brings you presents. He isn't going to punish you for eternity. God is a way scarier figure than Santa. Why put us all through this all? Probably because, like us, reality TV shit really sucks you in. Excuse me. But yeah, I've gone on so many different rants in this video. And what did I call it? The Conservative Strawman? At least I did touch on that. And I've been touching on a lot of inconsistencies and arguments. This has been a fun video. I'm proud of this video. I think it's a good look into who I am and the way I see things, the way I think, what my values are, why I believe what I do and why I don't believe what I don't. Regarding the psychic medium thing, when I was first introduced to that whole world, it was in 2013. No, it was like 2011 or something. Yes, 2011, that sounds right. And I met this psychic who I happened to share a birthday with, October 7th. And she was great. She helped wake me up to the fact that there's something more going on. She told me also that she thought that I was, like her, that she could see me doing what she did. I was like, that's interesting. Then my second experience was probably Raven. Then this other lady, she was nice. Then Ivy Rivera, she was, I think, one of the fourth, like, intuitive psychic people that I talked to, and she was the best one, because I've never seen someone who I related to more. I relate to the way she talks, how much she talks, the way she thinks, very, like, critical thinking. I saw myself in her, and I saw someone who was just very much educated, had integrity, knew what she was talking about, and had all of her bases covered, too. Like, she really, I immediately felt a connection. I was like, okay, I know I can trust her. And that's how her business spread too. Like, a lot of other people felt what I was feeling. She told a story about when she started, and she was setting up, like, working at psychic fairs and shit. And she always had more people at her table than other readers. And they started to, like, gossip behind her back and be like, what is she doing? And she didn't know. She wasn't doing anything special. She wasn't, like, putting out a better sign or anything like that. All she was doing was focusing on getting her job done. So she just had, like, a higher vibration. Her goal was to just do readings and help people. And that worked. That worked for her. People were lining up at her stand. And she had some people that were jealous of her. And somebody told her, do you know this one lady's, another reader, did you know that she's been bragging? She's been saying that she put a hex on you. And Ivy was like, what? No. She's like, have you felt anything? Has anything happened to you? She's like, no. so then, she went home and she sat down and she just like sat with her guides and her angels, and she said, what am I supposed to do about this? Should I do anything? Like this woman who has it out for me, who put a hex on me or whatever, should I do anything about it? Or is this just something I should stay away from? And she felt like the answer was, you should do something about this. This is yours to handle, because she's attacking you, so it's your job to defend yourself. So she was like, okay, I'm gonna try this mirroring technique, and she did some kind of like mirror shield around her, which was a way of like, return to sender. If someone is sending some negative shit her way, it's just gonna come right back. And not long after she did that, the woman who was trying to do all that shit to her was in the hospital, and like her hair was falling out and all sorts of horrible shit happened to her within weeks. So Ivy basically just said return to sender with the mirroring shit, and that woman, her whole life fell apart. So Ivy was disturbed. She was like, "Is that what she was trying to do to me? Holy shit!" But you know, it's interesting because people can send you psychic attacks, not just in that way, but in just shooting you a dirty look, um, just sitting at home, just festering their hatred, just sitting there like fucking asshole, and they're just this accumulation of negative energy. Psychic attacks can even be any kind of attack. It can just be verbal. They can just walk by and just, you know, say the wrong thing and piss you off. People also can do shit to objects. There was Ivy mentioned a situation. Somebody like gave her a necklace or some charm or something, and I don't remember if she actually touched it, but there was something where either she somehow she found out that it was like, you know, cursed. There was some kind of problem with it, and just having it on her, having it around, was causing a ton of horrible shit to happen. And then she stopped and then changed. So people can attach, well, objects carry energy anyway, and people can just attach intention to things. It's amazing how it works, and what's even more amazing is watching it actually play out. You're like, oh shit, that isn't just someone yammering. Like, you can actually see real world effects of this. You can see how it changes this person's life. Somebody's hair falling out and ending up in the hospital. That's not just like, oh, it's just magic, she's just sending a psychic. Like, that was real. She was shooting energetic shit at Ivy, and Ivy sent it right back, and she wasn't prepared to hit it. And I know people who do crazy shit like that. I think usually when someone is out to get you, they're not sitting around trying to curse you. But if you get involved with the wrong people, if there's people in spiritual communities, they might literally do that. But sometimes the way most people do it who aren't spiritual is just like I said, like just comments. They'll just walk past you and they'll just say something. Um, they'll send you a text. They'll unintentionally be cursing objects and shit. Like, they don't even know they're doing it, but they're still like, you know, the fact that they could give you a gift that is symbolic of some form of an attack, symbolic of an insult, and unbeknownst to them, they've now given you an object that has negative energy attached to it. Just by you accepting that from them, and touching it, you're getting a lot of the shit that's what they want for you, like negative shit that they want to happen to you, based on jealousy, whatever the fuck it might be. But it's low level negative toxic shit. And it's like, you always have a right to defend yourself. You don't ever have to accept that shit from anybody. Whether it be a punch in the face or something energetic, it doesn't matter if you can see it or not. If someone is trying to attack you, you have a right to defend yourself. You don't have to sit there and accept it. So I don't buy into the whole, like, I have a curse on me, so woe is me. You can defend yourself. You're not that helpless. You don't have to sit there and throw yourself a pity party. Um, you can defend yourself just like anybody can. And they can too, so don't feel any shame if you send it back to them, if you do a mirror. They can defend themselves too. They're the ones sending it out. There's nothing wrong with forcing someone to experience what they're trying to make you experience, because that's on them. Don't think I've ever told you about the statue I have in storage with a messed up attachment in it that screwed with me for a year.
Remind me to tell you about it sometime.
I'll be honest, I'm probably not going to remember that. I don't trust my brain, but if something reminds me of it, then I'll remind you of it. Um, so yeah, it that kind of shit's just fascinating to me. And when I started learning about it, I was like, oh wow, really? Then I realized that it did track. You know, I could think of situations in my life where I was like, oh yeah, I think that's what was happening there. And I think most people do that and they just don't realize it. Like sometimes you need somebody to point something like this out and you're like, oh yeah. Now that I look back at my past, there are situations that this applies to. Um, so that's what I liked about Ivy. You know, when I was listening to her for the first time, it was a lot of that. It was a lot of like, oh my God, finally somebody explaining some of the shit I've been experiencing. And I think that's what a lot of people feel when they discover her is sort of like that. So that's just sort of her whole situation. Like I said, with her table being the busiest at a fair and shit like that. She has just puts out this energy that just attracts people. And she's not doing it on purpose. She's not trying to suck people in. It just happens. She just vibrates on a higher frequency and people are drawn to that, like moths to the flame. Um, and her business has mostly just spread through word of mouth. So it's not like she is popular because, she got lucky or she won the lottery or anything. She people just speak well of her and it that's all that it takes. Um, so she's got a pretty good business going and she trains people in psychic mediumship, and that was my favorite thing. I was like, that's so cool, because so many people don't believe in it. So many people are like, oh, you're a con artist, you're a scammer, or you're delusional, you're crazy, you're hallucinating. um you're just a magician, and so I was like, but what if you're on the other side of it? What if you're the one doing what someone else would call magic? What if you're actually the one giving someone a reading and you're not trying to trick them? You also know you're not crazy, and you also know you didn't like study them on Facebook. It's not a hot reading, it's not a cold reading, because you're not looking at their body language. The way that she trains you to give readings, you're not looking the person up on the internet. You're not asking them any questions. She has a rule: tell, don't ask. They literally, you call them. You do not have to look at them. You're not, it doesn't even have to be a video call. You can just listen to their voice. All that's asked is that they say their first name, just their first name, and then all you have to do is talk. They said their first name, you just start talking, and you don't overthink it. You don't like try to base it on anything that you might already know about them. You don't overthink the information you're getting. You are sharing it, but you're also trying to hide it. You're not going to like say every single thing that pops into your head. You have to say, okay, this is popping into my head. How can I actually translate this into a message that the other person can do something with? Maybe I'm getting something weirdly specific, and maybe I should share that. Maybe that's actually useful for them. Maybe instead of just translating this symbol into a message, I should share the symbol for what it is, because maybe it's something that's going to be identifying to them. Like maybe it's their dead grandma is trying to show them something that would be personal to them. It could be something like that. So there's a lot of that kind of shit. Like when I gave someone a reading once, I remember seeing the Wicked Witch of the West, and I felt compelled to say that out loud instead of um, just translating it into a message. And after I said that out loud, she said, oh my God, when I was a kid, constantly every night, I would have nightmares about the Wicked Witch of the West. That was like a huge issue when I was a kid. And I was like, really? That's like oddly specific. I'm sure there aren't many people who can say that they always had nightmares as a little kid about the Wicked Witch of the West. I know she's a popular figure, but still, like, it's just very weird. Um, I in that same reading, I remember mentioning that I saw like a little girl with tap shoes on and just like dancing on a stage, and she was like, I used to tap. And not a lot of people know that about me. When I was a kid, I used to tap. And I was like, holy shit. that was one of those readings that I kept surprising myself. I knew so much shit about her, and I didn't know how I knew it because I didn't know I knew it at all. Like I literally was just telling her what was popping into my head, and I was just kind of going into the flow of it, which is the best way that I would describe it is sort of like you are tapping into a frequency. The same way that when you start talking and you go on a bit of a monologue and you sometimes don't even pay attention to what you're saying, but it still makes sense. It's like you're tapping into a frequency, but your ego is stepping aside. You're no longer trying too hard to control the narrative. You are instead, excuse me, just focused on telling this person what they need to hear, and you're opening yourself up to a higher dimension, nothing lower, no dark negative energy. You know how to tune that out, how to ignore that. You know how to tune in to what's actually high vibrational and for the client's best interest. And you can listen to messages from loved ones. And what's nice is when they're not asking questions, when they're not engaging in any way, you don't have to worry about bias. You don't have to be like, oh, well, I'm just basing it on things they said. There was a woman who I described her dog perfectly. It was like a tiny little toy poodle. And I described the dog, I described its size, the color. I described the dog jumping on her and kissing her face, and she goes, "Aw, I have a little toy poodle that is that color and it loves kissing me. It's like its favorite thing to do is kiss me." And I was like, "Well, there you go. I didn't know that." When I said that, that was so specific. I was taking a shot in the dark. She might have been a cat lover for all I knew. There was literally nothing about her, nothing at all that I could have seen that would have indicated that she had a dog at all. And yet I said that without overthinking it, and I was spot on, like down to the color of the dog, to the breed. I mean, Jesus, like a toy poodle. It could have been a million. It could have been a German shit. There could have been a million different things that it could have been, and it was a toy poodle. There is no way that you can say that I got lucky, especially since, like I was saying earlier, I can repeat it. I can do this whenever I want. I can sit any stranger down and give them a reading and do that kind of shit every time without fail. And that is proof that it isn't just a coincidence or a one-time thing. I can do it with anybody. Um, and I love doing it. It is a little draining and stressful, gives me anxiety. But I'm capable of it, and so is everyone. Like that's what I learned is it's not a gift. I think that's a myth, the idea that it's a gift. There is a lot of money to be made from promoting the idea that only certain special people have this ability, and it keeps the power in the hands of the psychics. It keeps the power in the hands of the church and the priests. So you have to, they're the only ones who can talk to God. They're trying to sever your relationship with spirit because it's supposed to be personal. You shouldn't have to talk to somebody else. Sometimes it's nice to hear about yourself from someone else. I gift myself a reading every year on my birthday. The one that I got this year was fucking incredible. Like, I mean, she hit the nail on the head. She asked, it was a 50-minute reading. She said, since 15-minute readings are so brief, I recommend that you just ask questions and I'll answer as many as we can get to in a 50-minute period. Alternatively, if you'd prefer that I just tell you what I'm getting and we can save time for one question at the end, we can do that. And I said, let's do that because the way I give readings, people, I tell them the same thing and they choose not to ask questions. And immediately I answer their questions anyway. Like I had this one lady book with me because she wanted to find out if her mean coworker had really changed or if she was still an asshole, if she should really buy the apology and buy the new act of how she's turned herself around, she's a better person now. She was like, should I buy this bullshit from my coworker or is it actually bullshit? And she booked this reading with me and I told her, I said, I can just tell you what I'm getting and we can save time for one question at the end or however you want to do this. And she said, we'll do that. So she didn't ask me. I didn't know she wanted to know anything about a coworker. I didn't know at all. I didn't even remember. This turned out to be the same person that I read who had the Wicked Witch dreams. I didn't even recognize her. I knew her name looked familiar, but I didn't recognize her as that person. I didn't make that connection. So I didn't know who she was. I didn't know anything other than her first name, and last name. But that, I didn't have time to Google her. She booked the reading like 2 minutes before I had to do it. So because I'm on a call center, so I literally just bolted down to my spot, sat down, got the pen and paper, wrote down her number, dialed it, did the reading, and she didn't give me anything to work with. I just had to talk. So the first thing um, I said, well, the first thing that's coming up is I'm seeing like a snake in the grass slithering to like bite your ankle. Um, the way that I interpret this, it feels like, um, somebody is a snake. Somebody's kind of like, you know, not really trustworthy. I feel like it's somebody in your friend's circle, and I was like seeing a circle. I was like, okay, yeah, there's a circle, a bunch of heads, and one of them lights up. Okay, so who is this person? I feel like it's a coworker, female. This woman has like shoulder length, like reddish brown hair, green eyes, and I feel like she may be, a little bit like a snake in the grass coming to bite your ankle. Um, is there like a specific message about this? And I just got the words "don't buy it," and I'm like, I don't know what that means. I'm gonna just say it as it is. Don't buy it. Does that mean anything to you? And she's like, yep. And I was like, okay. So then I was like, all right. And what else is coming up? And I was like, that's cute. I'm seeing a little kid dressed like a vampire. And then, I just went on and I said a couple other things, gave her a couple other messages. But I was like, all right, and do you have any questions? And she was like, no, you answered my question. You described my coworker to a T, and she had this whole act of how she had changed. And I think when you said don't buy it, I think that message was saying don't buy her bullshit. And I was like, wow, really? And she goes, also, my 3-year-old son was Dracula for Halloween last year. And I was like, holy shit. It's like, it was incredible. Um, and then the next day, I was like, wait a minute. I remember that name now. She was the person I gave that other reading to. And I went back and I listened to the recording of that because I had to send that was the reading that was going to decide if I got certified or not. So I had to send it to Ivy, and she listened to it and decided that I could be certified. In that reading, I mentioned the same fucking coworker. And I remember getting the same description of her with the green eyes and the red hair and all that, which again is not that common. Green is the rarest eye color. And red hair is also super rare. Like everything about this bitch was not something that you could just guess, you know? And I remember saying super specific shit. I was like, I feel like you have a coworker who tries to one up you all the time and tries to make you feel like really bad about yourself. But what I recommend is that you just ignore it because I feel like it's coming from a place of jealousy. I think she's intimidated by you, and she knows that you're a better worker than she is and just a better person, and so she's trying to bring you down to keep you down, and she wants you to feel bad about yourself. And it's because she's threatened by you. So just ignore her. And then I moved on, and that was that for that message. But when she was going over everything with me at the end, she wrote stuff down. She was like, and then you mentioned the coworker. I do have a coworker, and she's exactly like you described. She's like, she's always trying to one up me. She'll even say like, I could be better at sucking than you. Like, if you're gonna fail at something, I could even fail better than you. Like, just that way. And I was like, wow, really? Jesus, that's horrible. But I guess it makes sense. That definitely sounds like a jealous asshole. Um, and this was months before the second thing. So apparently, this same fucking coworker, months later, I think this was from like September, October, all the way to like April, something like that. Um, this bitch was still around and still causing trouble, but apparently trying to act like she changed. And Spirit showed her to me like a snake in the grass. Like, that's how bad this person is. So it's fascinating that's what it's like. That's an inside look at what it's like to give someone a reading. That's how it appeared to me. It was like images on my mind. Everyone is different. Everyone has different strong suits. Sometimes you get physical impressions, I was giving a reading, and someone came through who had died in a car accident, and right away I felt head pain, and I saw this bright light, and I described that, and she goes, "Yeah, my daughter, she died in a car accident." So I said, probably the bright light was headlights, and I said there was pain on my forehead, and she said, "A lot of people don't know this, but when I went to identify the body, there was severe head trauma, like really bad on her head, and it was like." It was hard for me to look at as her mother, and I was like, wow. So that was an identifying thing, to show me the head thing. Um, so she also said that when her daughter died, all she went home that night and all the lights and the TV and everything was on in the house, and she didn't leave any of that on. So I was like, I think that might have just been like a surge of power. I think maybe because your daughter died so quick, because the last thing she saw was headlights, and it was such a quick death. That was one thing I said too. It was quick. She got hit in the head. The death wasn't like she was suffering and her legs were in bit. Like she just instantly, she was alive, and then 1 second she was out. And I think because it happened so quick, it gave her kind of like a surge of energy, and I think she was able to go home, to her mom's house or wherever the lights were on. And I think it just, because ghosts are energy, we're energy. That's all that we are anyway. I think she just was able to do that, and I think that's fascinating. Um, but that reading was really nice. It was actually a friend of my grandma's, and she's a super nice person. That the I also identified her late husband in the reading, and I described him as a slightly bigger man with like a pronounced mustache, kind of a funny look, and I had never, excuse me, I had never seen this guy. My grandma showed me a picture of him. He looked exactly like how I saw him in my head. I was like, holy shit, this is the guy that popped up in the reading. And I did not even remember him having a mustache. Like I might have seen his picture, at some point, but I definitely did not remember it. I wasn't thinking of it when I gave the reading. And it's not the only time that I was able to accurately identify someone. There's plenty of strangers who I knew literally nothing about, where I perfectly described the person that they were asking me about. I used to do readings like this on YouTube for free. People would say, "Can you tell me about this guy that I have a crush on?" And I would tap into his energy. I would describe him, and they'd be like, "Yep, that's exactly what he looks like. Curly hair, blah blah blah. He's got some gray in the front, all sorts of specific shit." My grandma would tune in and watch some of my readings, and she was just floored by some of the shit that I said. She was like, "Oh my God, you get so specific, and you're never wrong. Like every time they tell you whether or not you're wrong, they're always like, yep, that's spot on." And obviously, I don't know that I'm going to be spot on when I'm saying it. These are random YouTube comments. It's not like I had time to research them. You're watching this happen live. So, when you're giving that level of specific information, you can't really say, "Oh, well, you're just saying generic stuff that could apply to anyone." And, you know, that could just, it's just a cold reading. Like, no, it isn't. It really isn't.
Sometimes I think ghosts might be summoned by the electric companies to run up the bill. Fucking electric companies. Fuck capitalism. I mean, that's the real problem there.
People trying to fucking profit off shit. I think capitalism may be part of the reason that there's so much stigma against like psychic mediumship, because in other cultures that do not have dictatorship and whether it be like communism, capitalism, like any form of trying to make a society work in smaller groups, um like like different tribes and shit, their spirituality is generally embraced, and alternative medicine is generally embraced, and it is generally effective. And in societies where we have for-profit medical systems, we usually have the problem of people just constantly being sick because there's no business in cured patients. And I think they try to cut out connection to spirituality and shit like that because that's not profitable. You know, if you start actually helping people and getting people in touch with their roots and with the real solutions to their problems, you don't gain anything from that. And Ivy has talked about so many people who've come and taken her course, and they've been in therapy for years, and all of a sudden they're completely turned around. All their problems, they're like, you know, symptoms of like ADHD and anxiety, depression, all sorts of other shit. They either identify what it actually is or it just goes away. It's just gone. Because a lot of that kind of shit actually arises from unmanaged intuition. And what I mean by that is you haven't been paying it. You're a psychic medium and you're absorbing energy and you're experiencing all these things, but you don't know you're doing it. So you don't manage it at all. You don't know how to interpret this. You don't know how to categorize it. So you just sort of take it in. And it's just sort of like, if you were just eating and eating and eating and not going to the bathroom, it's going to come out in some way. And if it's not in your control, it's going to find another way to get out of you. You're going to be like restless and you're going to be sweating and you're going to have all sorts of anxiety. There's going to be all sorts of random energy inside you that you don't even know isn't you because you think, oh, I'm all that's real. There's no alternative energy around me that could be getting in my head. So you might have a negative thought, a thought that isn't yours, or even a positive thought, and it's not yours, but something else put that in your head, but you claim it as yours. That is a destructive pathway to head down. And there are all sorts of other issues. So when you go to her psychic mediumship course and she gets you back in touch with the lost language, and you learn the empowering tool of energy communication, you feel like you have so much more control of yourself and a better understanding of what's actually going on around you and why you feel the way you do and what it all means. And the doctors that are treating you are fascinated watching all these issues they've seen you have for years, pill after pill, diagnosis after diagnosis, and nothing fixes the issue. And then you go to Ivy's psychic mediumship course and you come back and you're fine. Even after a couple weeks of it, you could be just like a totally different person. And she's had a bunch of doctors come up to her and ask her, "What are you doing?" Um, and a lot of them say, I can't tell my clients that. I can't tell people that. That's not professional." And she's like, Shame on you. I just explained to you how to help your client in a way that you can prove actually is effective, and you're not going to tell them that? What the hell is wrong with you?" A lot of doctors don't have integrity. A lot of people just, they would rather just stay in their comfortable bubble and do their job than actually help the person coming to see them. Because they just don't care that much. They just want to collect that check, and that's sad. But be selective about your therapist. Get a therapist who really cares about you, and you can tell that they care about you. Um, Ivy and I were just discussing an issue that we have of therapists who are too emotional. You know, a friend, the same friend that I was talking about earlier in the live stream, his therapist, he was talking about the abuse he experienced from his mother, and he told me that his therapist started crying when he told her about this. Like, that is so unprofessional that your client is telling you about his abuse and you're gonna cry. That's just gonna make him feel like he can't share his abuse. I mean, first of all, that's gonna make him feel like he's supposed to feel a lot worse. It's sort of like, oh, great, I didn't realize my life was that bad that even my therapist is like doesn't even know what to say. That's not gonna make him feel better. And it also might not encourage him to continue sharing shit because now he's made someone cry. Now he's made someone else feel bad. So he's probably, if he's a good person, he's probably gonna feel bad about that and then keep it to himself. As a therapist, it is your job to be professional. And Ivy said the same thing. She said she had therapists who would start crying when she would tell them certain things. And, just people like no boundaries. So unprofessional, so unhelpful. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of really not great therapists out there. And that's unfortunate because therapy as a concept is a great thing. It's an unbiased look at your life. But unfortunately, your therapist is a human being. They can be stupid, they can have opinions, and their opinions can be dog shit. So trust your intuition above all else.
That's right, capitalism, the electric company, and that woman's coworker. All shit. That's nuts. I prefer to my therapists not to leak.
Yeah, I think most people would like for their therapists to be an unbiased lens into their life, a reflection of their life, with some helpful, educated suggestions, rather than another person whose feelings they have to worry about not upsetting. you know, um, like that's kind of the whole point of a therapist is that you're not upsetting your friends, you're not bothering your friends with your shit. You're giving it to someone who you're paying to listen to you, and even they can't handle it. That's helpful. Thanks, you know? So that's just unfortunate, but it is what it is. Like I said, I recommend Raven if your therapist isn't covered by your insurance, and you pay for your therapist out of pocket, there is someone who is probably a little cheaper than what you're paying and way more effective. I hardly ever talk to Raven because she's effective. That's the thing. She doesn't mind that actually helping me means she loses my business because she cares about me as a human being. And she knows that if I actually do need her for any reason, I can reach out to her. She isn't going to go away. She isn't going to be like, "No, fuck you. We were supposed to have weekly sessions, but you didn't like me." Not that any therapist would do that because obviously that's not beneficial either, but she in general doesn't make her clients feel like they need to constantly be booking sessions with her. And a lot of therapists are like, "See you next week." And I'm not saying that you should reach a point where you don't need therapy anymore. It could be helpful to go to therapy every week. But you know, do you really want to? Like, I reached a point with my therapist where I wasn't getting anything out of it. I felt like I'm sitting there every week and I'm like, I don't know what to say. And I get more therapy out of just this, doing a live stream, than I did talking to my therapist. This is therapeutic for me. My voice is scratchy and I'm out of liquid to drink, so I'm gonna end the stream and go get a drink of water and probably go to sleep because it's late for me, um, for my schedule anyway. But yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, I don't accept my car, my shower, or my bladder leaking. Why would I accept a leaky therapist?
I love the way you put that. Oh, leaky therapist. Shit.
Okay.
Yeah, leaky therapist.
Um well, uh I'll see you when I see you. Like I said, I don't have a schedule anymore, so whenever I go live, I go live. And it is what it is. Hopefully, those of you who watched all of this from beginning to end enjoyed doing so. I know when I watch long videos, that usually from Ivy, but sometimes I come across a video and I just cannot turn it off. I'm so enthralled by it, I cannot turn it off. And I hope that you feel the same way about me. I'd be flattered if you were that interested in what I had to say that you just couldn't bear to turn this off, even though it's long as shit. So that would be awesome. If you made it this far in the video, leave a comment. Let me know that you did, and I will heart your comment. Somebody said no one is. Well, you're here, bitch. Who the fuck are you? Dave? JHC outside. JCH outside. Who are you? Yeah, have a good night, Daniel. Thank you. Hey, JCH outside. Say literally anything else. Hello. I'm gonna remove your comment and hide block you from commenting on my channel from that account. I know you'll just comment from another account, but still, couldn't hurt to eliminate one more. But I just want to confirm that it's you first. So say something identifying. Either way, it's an asshole who would say something negative, but message retracted. Aw, you think retracting the message stops me from hiding you from my channel? You poor stupid fuck. Nope. That doesn't work, bitch. I hid you anyway. That doesn't work. That proves that it's Dave. That proves that it's Dave. What a fucking asshole. Comment retracted. You coward. Don't engage. It's not worth it. Just block. They love the attention. Well, clearly, but it's fine. I mean, I just wanted to confirm that it was him before I blocked. And the fact that he retracted the comment is proof enough. But either way, it was an asshole comment, so I don't want that bitch. Even if it wasn't Dave, I don't want somebody saying negative shit like that on my channel. It also was retarded because he's saying no one's here. Well, you are. Are you saying that it's stupid to make it to the end of my video? You did it. Like, I mean, that's like walking into a gay bar and saying, everyone in here deserves to be bombed. It's like, well, you're in here. You know what I mean? You tried so hard and you missed. You ever see Monty Python? There was a video, I haven't seen this recently. Last time I saw this, I was a tiny little kid. But there was a witch trying to curse everyone. And she was like, I curse everyone in this room to become chickens. Then she was like, except me, but it was too late. And then she was a chicken. You know, I wish I could find that because I love witches and I remember liking that when I was a kid because it involved a witch. But I don't remember the context. I think it might have been like a wedding. Like a guy was marrying an ugly witch or something, and I don't even know. But whatever it was, the witch tried to curse everyone to turn into chickens, and she forgot to exclude herself. So that's kind of like that's what Dave just did. You're here, dude. What are you yelling at people who are here for? So yeah, good night, and thank you for watching. And I need water because my voice is fucking scratchy. And the problem is when that happens, it almost feels like a tickle in my throat, which is anytime I get sick, it starts with a tickle in my throat. So every time I do this, I don't get sick, but I have a similar symptom to what usually precedes me being sick. So it scares me a little, and I hate that. I hate that it feels like how I feel when I get sick. I've learned to just ignore it because I'm like, no, I know I'm not actually getting sick. It's just the aftermath of me talking for too long. It's just a different thing. But it's too similar of a feeling, and I hate the worry of being sick. It's awful. So I gotta go drink water. LOL, go water, Tristan. I will. Good night. And thank you for listening to me for 191 minutes. 192 now.